Dr. Greg, I mean, you can laugh all day, but face it, you're not related to ladybugs or grass. These scientists going into advanced medicine and healthcare, they're not thinking, oh, wow, I can only do this because I believe I'm related to ladybugs and grass and chimps. Wow, no, they're not doing that. And guess what? Bring them here on the panel. They're also not going to have answers to the hyoid bone discontinuity. They're not going to have answers to the Y chromosome dissimilarity. They're not going to have answers to the mitochondrial DNA mutation rates anyways. Okay, so
what is the observer? That's what I asked you. What is it? If everything
the observer is any measurement. Any measurement.
Bobby.
Any measurement.
Bobby, try to focus. Lock in, buddy. Lock in. If everything that exists,
measurement,
every single thing.
Space.
Bobby, I know you're excited.
It's amazing.
Okay? You've been demolished all night. How do you explain the abundance of helium that they find in zircon crystals? Zircon. I'm almost done, dude. It's like I'm not even done my question. Okay.
He can't help himself,
Donny. He really can't help it. He just completely crashed out of the 3-hour mark.
Just tell me the size difference.
Would you agree that uranium? Would you agree? It's off topic.
All right, guys, welcome back to Modern Day Debates. I'm your host, Mike. Today we got evolution on trial is kind of the overarching theme, but more specifically, we got Adam and Eve versus human evolution. And let's go over the format real quick. It's going to be opening statements are about 15 minutes each. We're going to do some 8-minute rebuttals back and forth per team, and then a 50-minute discussion, and then a 5-minute closing per team. And then we'll get into the Q&A. Before we start, just want to remind you guys, hit that like button, help it get a little algo juice. And then DebateCon 9 tickets are linked in the description. They're going to be, I believe, early bird special, $99. That's a great deal. I've seen people snag those and get some cool perks for being early. Noticing Greg and Mr. Bobby are switched. Okay, we got that switched, and then these guys somehow got switched. Zoom's trolling me. Cool. Ooh. All right, so you guys decided who was going to go first backstage. So whoever is taking the lead, I believe Mr. Axiomatic Reasoning here, right?
I thought Donny said he wanted to go
Donny,
first.
I meant. That's that's what I meant. Donny.
Okay.
Donny's going first. Okay, Donny, I'll start your timer, 15 minutes, and then if you want to turn it over to Sam for any of that time, I'll leave you for that, and then we'll get started whenever you start talking.
Or we're going to switch it around, so.
Yeah, Sam's going to start. So, Sam.
All right.
Whenever you're ready.
All right. Mic's on? All good?
Yes, sir.
All right. First of all, we want to thank MDD for hosting this debate and thank our opponents for engaging with us tonight. The title of this debate is Adam and Eve versus Human Evolution. Donny and I are excited to be debating both a mathematician representing the world of abstract and a molecular biologist representing the world of the concrete particulars. Our opponents truly do represent the wisdom of the world in this debate, and it is that worldly wisdom that Donny and I intend to attack. Any parent who has raised children knows that at some point the child will demand to be treated like an adult. What they mean is that they don't want a curfew, to be told to clean the room, or to be told to do anything at all. But when we ask them to pay their own bills like an adult, they become indignant. Well, you are not fully an adult if daddy pays the bills. So similarly, our unbelieving friends want to tell us that they can explain reality without God. They want to say that math and science are possible in a world where there is no God. But tonight, we're going to ask who pays the bills, if not the one they call Sky Daddy. So, Dr. Bobby, I understand that you are an amazing counter, but how do you account for counting? If math is just conceptual, then it is subjective. Well, if that's the case, then it's going to be weird to say that it's obligatory. Mathematical truths are necessary. They hold in every possible world and cannot be otherwise. It's strange to believe that every society around the world just coincidentally came to the same conclusion regarding math as opposed to discovering it. Subjective inventions do not force universal agreement across history and civilizations. If numbers were merely subjective mental constructs, then contradictory maths would be equally valid. Yet no coherent system can make 2 + 2 = 5 without collapsing into incoherence. You cannot will a different answer to a well-formed equation. It's going to be really weird to say that we can model reality with subjective math and that it comports with reality in a meaningful way. The structure of mathematics appear to be built into the fabric of the cosmos. This is best explained if those structures are real and grounded in the same mind that sustains the physical order. So if you are a realist when it comes to math and you want to invoke evolutionary modeling, how are you going to ground math objectively? Dr. Bobby and Dr. Greg, who pays the bills when it comes to the laws of nature? If we want to say that they are just semantic descriptions of the way things are, then you have nothing standing in a cause and effect relationship with the physical world. The very concept of the laws of nature emerged in a theistic framework as God's mathematical order imposed on matter. Removing the creative divine imposer leaves the notion of governing laws metaphysically hollow. With no laws of nature, you have no justification for any extrapolations to the past on your evolutionary timeline, and therefore rendering evolutionary processes and modeling indefensible. Dr. Greg, who pays the bills when it comes to unity and diversity in molecular biology? When you invoke a cell, knowing that a cell is not made of cell, you are invoking a more particulars that are being unified. But those more fundamental particulars, such as the DNA, a virus, a gene, or whatever you are going to reference, is also not made of itself, but more fundamental states of unity. Atoms, for example, are not made of atoms, but more fundamental states of unity. So we are going to take this reductionist question all the way down to that which is most fundamental. Anytime you invoke states of unity, I'm going to ask for the unifier. If you can't tell me what it is that is fundamental, singular, and provides for all states of unity, then what are we even talking about when you point to a molecular biological particular? And Bobby, if you're still listening, this would also apply to abstractions such as math being unified with the physical world, our epistemology being unified with our metaphysic, and our ethics, if we're being honest, when the individual doing the unifying cannot be instantiated without answering the question. If this bill does not get paid, then the intelligibility of the evolving object is destroyed. Someone might ask what all this has to do with the topic of Adam and Eve. Well, before a contender can even talk about science, they need to at least establish a foundation for science. This positive argument here is that it is the Christian God who created Adam and Eve that pays the bills. The number 7, and therefore math, exists concretely in the mind of God. We are thinking God's thoughts after him. It is God that dictates everything that is possible and impossible by imposing concrete supernatural laws of nature to govern the natural world. All creation is evidence of the triune God who has made himself known, because all creation exists in states of unity and diversity, which is indicative of the Trinity, and the equal ultimacy of unity and diversity found within the Godhead. Therefore, the Christian God who made Adam and Eve is necessary for intelligibility, science, and coherency in reality. Donny, over to you.
Okay, let me pause the timer real quick. 5 minutes and 50 seconds. Mike, if you don't mind, I'll screen share and get that in order.
All right. You're all good.
Just moving a few things out of the way. And okay, I'll start the timer now. Adam and Eve versus human evolution. Let's get into some of the science here. The quest for Adam, the science of the first man, we'll be touching on, and the quest for Eve, the science of our first mother. Technically, we're defending and demonstrating that the scientific evidence best supports the separate ancestry model. Our interlocutors here tonight, Bobby, Dr. Greg, they will argue that humans and chimpanzees are related through common ancestry. We will show that humans and chimpanzees are not related. And what that does is it cuts off the universal phylogenetic tree in the sense that if humans and chimps aren't related, then humans and ladybugs are definitely not related. As we will see here, directly from the conventional literature. DNA diversity is low. Mutation rates are measurable and they're fast, a lot faster than evolutionists ever predicted. The math points to thousands of years, not hundreds of thousands. For example, here's a paper, the famous Parsons paper. We will be going through several of these. And they point out that the observable empirical mutation rate, this is focusing on the D loop or the control region, is fast. 1 in 33 generations, they admit directly in the paper. This is roughly 20-fold higher than estimates derived from phylogenetic analyses. Directly in the paper, they say that this observation of the faster substitution rate being 20-fold higher than would be predicted from phylogenetic analyses, that clock would result in an age of the most recent mitochondrial DNA that's maternally inherited, uniparentally inherited, passed down on the mother's side, of about 6,500 years. Again, I want to highlight that from this paper, using our empirical rate to calibrate the mitochondrial DNA molecular clock would result in an age of 6,500 years, contradicting clearly the human evolution model. Ann Gibbons, I believe it was the following year, this is a scientific commentary on this study, she pointed out the same thing, using the new clock where we count mutations, for example, from grandmother, mother, daughter, mother to daughter, count of the mutations, you get a faster rate. She said using the new clock, she would be a mere 6,000 years old. Incredible. It's not just that study. We've got several. Here's another one, Madrigal et al., 2012. They point out that our results confirm that the mutation rates observed in pedigrees are much higher. So there's a paradox. There's a challenge here that apologists of evolution are doing their best to deal with. In that same 2012 study, they say this: we argue that until the cause of these discrepancies, so yes, there's ideas, perhaps the rate's faster because of heteroplasmy or natural selection or somatic cell line mutations. Okay, but they're admitting, in light of the potential explanations, these discrepancies are not fully understood. And why this matters, here's the important part. This study was published in 2012. After proposed corrections, there's a paper, the Soares et al. Paper, that does their best to correct these challenges to the evolutionary molecular clock. They say, yet Madrigal and colleagues still stated that the cause of these discrepancies had not been fully understood. Here's Howell et al. From 2003. This was a pooling of all the mitochondrial DNA mutation rates as much as they could. And they also conclude that in the control region, which is largely neutral in terms of the mutations accumulating, are 10-fold higher. Directly from that Howell et al. Paper, for proponents of evolution that want to explain this away simply through selection. Remember, selection's limited. Selection's a fine-tuning mechanism that keeps a species as strong as it can be and can't see the majority of nearly neutral mutations. And so this paper in 2000 conclude that selection is unlikely to be a major factor that underlies the difference between phylogenetic and pedigree divergence rates, which is not the same thing as saying that selection does not act on mtDNA, but how much is it acting? Our interlocutors here tonight are going to have to provide us a quantifiable model. How much selection is at play? How much can you document and empirically verify to take a 6,500 year date for Eve back to roughly 200,000? Again, directly from Howell et al. 2003. In conclusion, the results presented here, these are all from the conventional literature, by the way, here indicate that the pedigree rate of control region divergence is significantly higher than the phylogenetic divergence rate. Paper from 2022 admits the same thing, observed rates much higher. It's also very interesting too, because evolutionists could point to some of the deeper lineages in Africa, or perhaps Neanderthals, and yet we see real-time evidence for hypermutation in known families. Notice this paper, it's incredible. Our findings imply that defects in DNA repair genes can increase germline mutation rates and can increase it 7 times, 7-fold. That's incredible. There's a paper here that talks about how certain regions in African genomes mutate faster than in Europeans. This is a mitochondrial DNA phylogenetic tree taken from the 1,000 Genomes program. Dr. Rob Carter built it. And what you can see is these branches, they represent DNA differences or mutations. The branches are all close together. This starburst pattern, that's what you see. That suggests rapid and exponential population growth. That's exactly what you'd expect from the Adam and Eve model. Notice the HVR haplogroup, most common in Europe. You can see that branches differ in size. They go back to a common ancestor. What that means is some people in the same amount of time are picking up more mutations than their cousins. And so that creates massive problems for assumptions behind the evolutionary molecular clock. You could do the same thing with Y chromosomes. Y chromosome mutation rate is fast, roughly 1 to 3 per generation. And DNA variation on the Y chromosome is low. So you can take worldwide male Y chromosomes, line them up and trace them back to a single Y chromosomal ancestor just 4,500 years ago, who would be Y chromosome Noah specifically. This is from the conventional literature. Dr. Rob Carter designed a mitochondrial DNA consensus sequence showing a very low variation. If deep time were true, we should find more rare variants due to mutation accumulation. What we actually observe is consistent with the separate ancestry or Adam and Eve model rather than human evolution. Dr. Rob Carter, he published that paper in the conventional literature. This is from a creationist website here, but he did a graph and he investigated if selection can solve this discrepancy. And you can see here on the visual that you've got neutral mutations, deleterious mutations, beneficials, and even with both deleterious and neutral mutations in some selection, the per generation neutral rate still approximates the long-term substitution rate. So sure, selection works, but it doesn't work very well to slow down the overall mutation rate. In my last roughly minute here, I want to point out that it's the differences that make all the difference. And so sure, we could look at similarities all day, but what happens when we look at the dissimilarities? For example, the Y chromosomes between humans and chimpanzees, when you consider overall architecture, size differences, they're less than 30% the same. You can see this here in a paper from 2024. So how does Dr. Bobby and Dr. Greg explain those massive discrepancies? I'll have several questions to cover in the cross-examination. Last point I want to touch on is the fossil data matches beautifully with the genetic data. So for example, these are the hyoid bones of humans, the example that we have in the Australopithecines, and also the chimpanzee. And so we have ape-like hyoid bones in Australopithecines and fully modern hyoids in humans and Neanderthals, which are designed for sophisticated speech in humans. So my question to our interlocutors here in my last 10 seconds is show us that transitional series in the fossil record from an ape-like hyoid to the human hyoid that we see today. And wow, time flies by. That's 15 minutes.
All right, you can stop sharing screen. Cool. Thank you so much, guys, for your intro there. We'll turn it over to Dr. Greg and axiomatic reasoning, which I believe Dr. Greg is going to let axiomatic take over this. So I'll start the timer as soon as you start talking.
Okay. Yeah, well, thank you for having me. Oh, wait, I got to share the screen. Sorry. I hope that doesn't eat into my time. Is that working?
Yep. Sorry,
Oh,
I was
okay,
muted.
okay.
I was I'm gonna just mute up for your thing. So I'll start the timer the moment you start talking. Go for it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, thank you for having Dr. Greg and myself on. Very thankful to Modern Day Debate and also to Donny and Mike for hosting, right? And James, of course, for allowing us to do this. So Dr. Greg and I, we both share a mutual interest in disinformation and misinformation. Our credentials were already presented a little bit, but just to reiterate, Dr. Greg has a PhD in microbiology. I have a PhD in mathematics. So we offer a pretty wide spectrum of information to provide people. So hopefully, that'll help us in this discussion in being able to, explain things and talk about things. As a mathematician, I have a tendency to look at things on a very high level. So in particular of interest, I'd like to talk a little bit about information dynamics. One of the issues that I think is kind of glossed over with respect to creationism is typically there's no reconciliation of the problem of the sparsity that you expect in information dynamics or high dimensional information dynamic systems. So I just want to talk a little bit about that because I just think it, kind of clearly demonstrates a little bit of the issue that goes on with kinds type models. So let's go ahead and dive into that and see some of the material that I'm discussing. So information or informational pathing or stochastic pathing, we imagine that it's some type of a distribution or collection of information. And typically it is being modeled over some variable. The variable could be time, it could be geography, it could be a number of different places. And in general, we have a very good understanding of how that works, right? High dimensional data is incredibly sparse. There's a number of, toy examples that people go through and look at to understand that. So in general, right, we have a very good understanding of what this should look like. That is, if I start with two random locations in a high dimensional data, like let's say 1,000 dimensions, what are the odds that they would end up being able to get close to each other, right? Or how long should they take before they get close to each other? Versus if I have common descent, like I have two different paths and they're both changing through morphologic time, well, what is the expected outcome if they actually come from a common origin? So I went ahead and brought up the idea that I'm trying to allude to here. Here's an example of a presentation that's typically provided in like Answers in Genesis, where they typically put on the left, the scientists pitted against, scripture or something along those lines. And in general, they basically, create a model out of nothing, and they draw a picture on the right-hand side, trying to somehow indicate that these two things are just enough similar. They're just close enough. They're really similar. They're just a hair different, right? They'll even say, like within the plaque or even when they're giving a presentation, that it's really just a matter of perspective, that scientists and creationists look at the exact same data, they see the exact same things, and that they come to different conclusions based on two different models. And that's just factually not true. The hope I hope to get to in this presentation is the demonstration that the right model is completely fabricated. It's not anything close to what would be expected. And we can demonstrate that mathematically. It doesn't require like super complicated math or anything to that effect. I mean, a little bit of complicated math, but so let's go ahead and discuss that a little more. Just to emphasize that the drawing on the right is certainly a made-up drawing and not actual data. This here was pulled from one of Answers in Genesis presentations. As you can see, they readily swap out the starting values, and they also regularly reuse the graphs because they're not real, right? These things are entirely fabricated. I'm not saying it's inappropriate to necessarily use images here and there for explanatory reason, but when someone is attempting as a scientist, giving a presentation in supposedly a scientific forum, trying to present a real theory, you expect some type of data to have been calculated, and that isn't what happened in this particular situation. So some examples of actual data being used in actual science. Here's an example of populations, and this was a funny paper on trying to calculate out the perfect human. So they went ahead and calculated different regions and then looked at different, genomes, and then calculated through them and figured out this seems to be the perfect human. And if you zoom in on that particular area, it basically is Puerto Rican. So if you ever have a question on who the perfect human is, it's Puerto Rican. So tongue in cheek, right? Scientists are obviously trying to present that you obviously can't calculate a perfect human. That'd be silly in and of itself. Other examples, here's various countries where we have actual data being presented. Here is bacteria and eukaryotes being mathematically graphed out on a computer. Here's another computer-generated graph. In general, hopefully the thing we're taking away from these is that we can see the taxonomical lines showing up, i.e. we can see the morphologic change through time, right? And that's going to be a growing theme in this entire presentation, is that morphologic change through time or geography or whatever other variable you want to use, it's readily available and easy to pick out of the data. It isn't like a mystery, right? If something is generated with discontinuities in high dimensional data, it will maintain those discontinuities basically indefinitely, unless you do some really terrible things to the data, in which case you basically turn it into an uninterpretable soup, right? And so the point is that the data is readily understandable, and we can readily see all of the different taxonomical lines showing up in various ways. Here's some other examples of a taxonomical structure, some more taxonomical lines. This one is geography, geographic lines, right, as opposed to through time. Some other examples of calculations that are done as different studies are done in different capacities. Some other examples, literally the study of taxonomy itself and aligning of different fossils into the past is exactly the sort of thing that I'm talking about here. We can do it literally on a DNA level, informationally. Some other actual data that's plotted, kind of demonstrating this point. I'd love to talk more about this. This is a demonstration of linear projection into two dimensions, what's called PCA, versus a learned stochastic pathing algorithm through generative modeling, which is called VAE, right? So it's fascinating that we can take data and we can actually generatively produce newer models that pick out the pathing in even more detail. And so it gives us a lot more insight into the data. So as a mathematician, if I'm told, that there's weird properties of information dynamics that I don't know anything about, I go, okay, let's do that then. Why not? So I go ahead and write up a little bit of programming. I don't know much about reproduction or speciation, but I just create a couple of, dumb models that take some, distributions and do basically what you would think speciation does. It separates the distributions or it reproduces the distributions with some type of variation. Not meant to be anything sophisticated of the sort. And we just generate some data in order to get an idea of what this type of process would look like. So here's some examples of that data being generated. So here's some other examples being generated and some other examples being generated. You may notice a slight triangular shape. That's kind of expected from pathing data when you do two-dimensional projection. So this is 1,000-dimensional data being projected into 2 dimensions. So you always expect the x-axis to be slightly larger than the y-axis because those are the directions of greatest variation. And so what we see in all of these is a very clear indication of the pathing that's expected. They came from pathing, they came from stochastic change over time, and that's exactly what we see, right? This is very similar to a lot of the data that I showed on the previous page, where we literally see data that's representative of high-dimensional data going backwards through morphologic time or through geographic location. So what happens if we try to do a kinds model? So we go ahead and take that same type of data and we instead start with randomized starting places, again, at only like 1,000 dimensions. Last I checked, DNA is like 6 billion dimensions or something. So there's like really tiny amounts of dimensions by comparison. And the question is, how long does it take to get these to be separated? Now, it's very hard to see data in high dimensions, which is why we have to project it down into 2 dimensions. But the point is that these discontinuities remain basically indefinitely, and there's no real way to put them together, but we'll try in a second. So just to give an idea of how separate these groups are, I went ahead and plotted the last group. I did an LDA projection so I could separate them as much as possible. I did a somewhat higher dimensional projection in order to try to calculate their actual difference or their distance to each other. Approximately 99% of the space between these clusters is empty. And you can basically just take the distance and the radii to kind of see what I'm getting at. And so if you take any of these two clusters at random, you expect 99% of the data between them to be non-existent. There's nothing there. It's completely empty, right? So again, two-dimensional projection, it's hard to necessarily see the distance between these. So I went ahead, okay, well, why don't we just do a little bit of math? I don't know. So I go ahead and calculate out, like, well, how long would it take to at least reduce the 98% to like 33%, just for fun, right? And I went ahead and calculated out, ln of d divided by 4v, just a rough calculation. I then generated it into a table. I simulated the first box, and it actually comes out to like 213. So I'm off by like a factor of 2. No big deal. So the point is that this is the number of iterations it would approximately take at these particular dimensions with this particular variation in order to get these clusters to merge. And so this, I think, creates a pretty strong problem for creationists because they have to either accept incredibly low dimensions at the start of the kinds, or they have to accept incredibly high variation at the start of the kinds, because that's the only way you can make a kinds model actually have emergent data, right? If they're coming from completely different starting places, right? And we don't see that in the data, obviously, as was even presented by our interlocutors here, right? Okay, well, let's just imagine. I mean, let's just grant it. The beginning of the kinds, they had awesome dimensions and awesome variations or whatever. Let's just imagine that that is possible, that somehow these clusters got merged together. So literally you have clusters of paths and they've been forced together in some way through enough time, enough generations, high enough variation, and low enough dimensional difference, right? Somehow we allow that to happen. We'll just grant it. We'll just grant that that is a possibility. And so we'll just merge all the clusters together so that all their pathings get close and we get the taxonomical smearing as we see today, right? We see taxonomical smearing throughout the entire animal kingdom. And so we'll just let that happen and let's see whether or not that becomes a viable model. So here's the two starting places. We started on the left-hand side under the assumption that this is what taxonomical pathing would look like over, morphologic time. And then we start with the kinds model under this particular assumption that this is approximately what it would look like, but we just haven't seen enough time or enough generations, or the variation was higher than this, or whatever the case may be, right? And then I take the end result of it being merged, and I go ahead and I start slicing it backwards as though we're attempting to align it backwards. We're doing a systematic study into the past. We're going to take each, piece of bone and align it with the one that we find that's older, and then align it with the one that we find that's older, and the one that we align with that's older, right? And the question is, if you have data that was generated through stochastic pathing, what happens if you go backwards in time and do that? Well, it generates the pathing, right? That's exactly what happens. And so that's exactly what I did. I just went backwards and normalized with respect to, going backwards in time, and the pathing lines up. And the reason it lines up is because it was generated from pathing. And so all the branches, little splits and things, they kind of get rotated out, but that's what happens, right? What happens if we attempt to merge the kinds together into a bunch of paths and then attempt to do the same thing? Basically the sequences in the pathing become indistinguishable, and you get something that looks like this, right? And so this is just me attempting to simulate the data. And I hope I don't have to say this. I hope this is obvious, but these are not the same, right? They're nowhere near the same, and you can never make them the same, right? They're just mathematically not the same, and they can never be made the same. So I think that this leads a lot of questions on how we would create a kinds model. If we can't even do it at the variance and dimension level, how would we ever be able to do it in like a more rigorous fashion or present it in a more rigorous way, right? Okay, so I'll go ahead and pause there or stop there for this presentation. Anyway, the conclusion is there is no kinds model. And I thought it'd be fun to see a three-term Fourier transform. So there you go. Enjoy.
All righty. You can stop sharing your screen. All right. Sam, did we lose you?
Yeah.
We did.
You did not. You
Okay,
did not.
good.
Well, what do you mean by that? All right. So
Different
I'm gonna
debate.
take a few minutes here, and then we're going to stop the time so Donnie can switch over.
Yeah, so we'll do the 8-minute rebuttals back and forth. You can split that up however you like. But just want to remind the chat, like the video, please, and get your tickets to DebateCon. Like us on all the socials. We got them all, except we actually did not go through with Rumble after all, so forget Rumble. All right, whenever you guys are ready.
All right, you said that it's not true that the interpretation of the data is subjective, but that's just factually false. I mean, one of the arguments that Donnie brought up was the hyoid bone. That's controversial within your own paradigm. There are many lines of evidence that you can point to that are very contentious within your own theory. When we understand what a paradigm is, then we understand that we are both looking at that same data. Think of a Copernican revolution, or a time between before the observation of a red shift and after. You have two competing paradigms looking at the same evidence and reinterpreting everything. So what you said is, that's just factually false. You said that you see the data going back through time. Well, there's a difference here, a distinction that we should make between what we would call a high confidence and a low confidence science. A high confidence science is that which is going to be observable, testable, repeatable, and falsifiable. A low confidence science is going to be something that is more forensic or inferential in nature. So yes, if you make a lot of assumptions, then you can extrapolate those things back to the past only after you engage with my opening statement here. Your meme that said, let's grant this other baloney, we'll just call that a meme, because all that was a bunch of lines. But if you notice, if you remove all of the lines that represent the lack of data on your side, what do we see? We see kinds, just as the Bible says, they're there. One thing that you said is that was right. One thing that you said that was right many times is let's imagine. And you've done that a lot. But I want to present a problem here. When you say that there's a problem with kinds, well, there's a difference between accidental and essential properties. I'm sure that you know this. And when we identify something, we identify them by their essential properties. But on your model, the things that represent those essential properties are always changing. So philosophically, there's nothing within your model of origins or evolution that can be identified by essential properties, because those things are always changing. Donnie, go ahead.
Okay. Let me just pause it real quick as I screen share to address several of his points. So that was 2 minutes and 11 seconds, Sam. Good work. Mike, I'm assuming it's showing. And so to keep us moving along smoothly, I'll hit the timer again. Okay, so I have several questions for our interlocutors, of course, based on discontinuities. Bobby talked a lot about discontinuities, yet he has quite a few discontinuities to address that we presented: Y-chromosome dissimilarity, the mitochondrial mutation rate data, and a few questions here on fossil discontinuities. Now, here's the entire problem with his opening statement. Couple of things. Was a complete dodge. I mean, the supposed best evidence for human evolution, endogenous retroviruses, chromosome 2 fusion, pseudogenes, GULO pseudogene, none of that is mentioned. And what Bobby's doing is he's zooming out so far that we're actually bypassing the ancestry claim here today of human evolution. Are humans and chimps related? That needs to be demonstrated. So sure, Bobby, you can statistically arrange organisms into morphological or taxonomic hierarchies, but classification is not itself genealogy. Okay, and so the critical question that needs to be answered here, and that includes addressing our arguments from genetic level discontinuities that does demonstrate separate ancestry. And a lot of these statistical papers that you'll find, they make a lot of wrong assumptions on DNA differences and hierarchies in the creation model, okay? But we need to see if those proposed branches hold up when we examine the specific evidence connecting them. Take humans and chimpanzees, for example, what we've been focusing on here tonight so far. That's comparatively a recent split. That's why I started my presentation showing that, okay, our interlocutors here tonight, they claim that humans and chimps go back to a common ancestor. But if we can cut that off right at the beginning which we've certainly shown today with a few lines of evidence, Y chromosome, mutation rate data, so on and so forth, then certainly humans and ladybugs are not related, okay? So the evidence needs to be presented from our interlocutors here that shows humans and chimps sharing a common ancestor. Because if you can't establish that humans and chimpanzees are related, then you certainly can't establish that humans and ladybugs are related. So these discontinuities, these are major differentiating points. Where is the transitional hyoid formed between the ape-like bola and the human bar-shaped design? Where is the fossil evidence showing the gradual emergence of human speech anatomy? If Australopithecines were evolving toward humans, why does their pelvis still show climbing adaptations? For example, the size or length of the ischium. I'd like to show this article because this has to do with statistics and shows the discontinuities. This was done by statistical baraminologists, where they look at the morphological data. And after examining it, you have your extant apes as their own kind, Australopithecines as their own kind. You can look at various points of data like the hyoid for that. And then you have humans based on their own, as being their own kind, and the genetic data verifies that. And so if you want to discuss statistics, then we certainly have that evidence too. So when it comes to a model, yes, we have a model. We would suggest that the majority of DNA differences or genetic diversity is due to design diversity, created heterozygosity. What that does is it makes very specific predictions. So I want people to pay close attention to the slides here. We would predict that the vast majority of the genome should be functional. That means these hierarchies that we see, those are hierarchies by design and not descent. And it turns out we've discovered that over 80% of the genome is active and functional. We've seen that with ENCODE. We've also discovered functional roles. So this is our model. The evolutionists, for example, that are being represented here today would have to argue that the majority of the genome is junk. We've discovered that pseudogenes, here's several papers, are necessary to sustain healthy life processes in the cell. We can get into the GULO pseudogene. Endogenous retroviruses, same thing. We've identified numerous essential functional roles for endogenous retroviruses. They're playing an antiviral role in the genome. They function in determining cell types, regulating gene expression. That means these hierarchies, the fact that we share more in terms of morphology and anatomy with the chimps than we do with old world monkeys, dogs, and fish, that means those hierarchies are there by design. Another major problem, and why Bobby dodged the topic largely, is because the high confidence scientific data, the best way to answer this question of ancestry is through genetics. And the genetic data itself was completely dodged. Switching sides is one of my favorite papers showing how endogenous retroviruses function in the immune system. Notice this: if we did not have HERVs, human endogenous retroviruses, then we couldn't exist, including humans would have never existed. So it's an incredible time to be a young Earth creationist, because the best so-called evidence for human evolution has been overturned by the fact that we've discovered function after function. Notice directly from the conventional literature, increasing knowledge on these functional roles. So if he wants to talk about discontinuities, we can talk about genetic level discontinuities all day. And so my question in the last 10 seconds, if humans and chimps are related, how do you explain the mutation rate data? How do you explain the fact that the Y chromosomes between humans and chimps are less than 30% the same? There we go.
Okay, thank you very much for that rebuttal. We'll turn it over to Dr. Greg. Are you going to take this 8 minutes here?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Well, I'll start the
You'd like
timer.
to go, Dr. Greg?
You can go if you want, but I can go as well.
Yeah, you guys can split it however you want. I just wasn't sure if you wanted
go.
to start this one.
That's fine.
I mean, it's just wild, the cherry picking of the data. Even Makova et al. 2024, like, it shows 2% divergence there. It's just it's wild to me, the cherry picking of scientific papers where even the authors themselves would refute exactly what you're saying, and it's dishonest, and it's disinformation. Just imagine if what they're saying is true, right? they would have, like, why are they here? Why aren't they working as geneticists for pharmaceutical companies? Why aren't they going out, showing their expanded view of evolution? We're talking about rates of evolution that are 30% higher than what we normally see. Where's the technology that's coming from this? The HIV viral evolution has actually been admitted in court in a case in 1998. So apparently, if that mutation rate is wrong, then apparently there was someone that should be freed. Outbreaks, the 2014 Ebola outbreak, the back tracing there can be shown to be a single spillover event. So, please help us understand, these things. Same thing with the SARS-CoV-2 and the outbreak in Washington State. We can look at the viral mutation rates, and we can see that it spread in single outbreak events. Same thing with super spreader events on the East Coast. Like, there's a reason why creationists never are patenting their technologies or never taking these to a company and creating money off of it. It's, why are they here? Why are they here cherry picking data about Adam and Eve debate if they know so much about evolution? Even another thing, oncology. So we use a tumor's evolution and mutation rates to know basically decades before a diagnosis if they're going to happen. We do this for over 2,000 cancers. So why are they here if they can help diagnose and keep tell us about oncology, like make a medicine that's based off of this? There's actually anti-cancer medications that actually speed up the mutation rates of the cancers. So, like, how does that correlate with this increased viral evolution that everyone's going through, or the mutation rate that everything's going through? And of course, like, there's scientific reasons why all of these things are false, right? The way that they cherry pick data about somatic versus germline mutations, and I'm like, it's like a chess game. He plays this game and I play this game, and it's just boring. Like, why isn't there anything created from this? Why aren't people making money off of this technology if they understand it? And you talked about imagine if there was a bottleneck. Okay, imagine if there was a bottleneck for humans this large. Okay, cheetahs is a great example. Basically, every single cheetah can actually have a skin graft from one to another. Basically, that we could only do that with humans if you're an identical twin. So that's how small the genetic bottleneck was. Why don't we see things like that happen with humans? We don't. Tasmanian devils have incredibly low genetic diversity. They can actually have cancer that can spread from one to another. They're so closely related. Elephant seals, another one. They went from 30 to about 250,000. And we can follow that genetic diversity, and we can show and see that it doesn't mutate at the rates that they're talking about. There's tons of different genetic bottleneck events that have happened, and we have evidence of them, and they do not follow any of the evidence that they're saying.
Do you want to turn over the rest of the time to Axiom here? All right.
Yeah.
I'll stop it at
sure.
4 minutes, and I'll let you get a fresh start whenever you're ready.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, I don't know if I'll take 4 minutes.
Right.
I don't know. There seemed to be a lot of indication of like dodging or misunderstanding something or whatnot. I'm happy to be educated on stuff. I don't know everything, but I feel like I know math pretty well. And like in general, there's simply no such thing as like starting with random starting places in high dimensional data and just stochastically being able to, end up near each other, not without like a large number of generations or a large or a very small number of, dimensional difference or an incredibly large variance, right? And again, I think maybe this was slightly lost. This is a general mathematical topic on like stochastic information. I'm not necessarily saying that this is particular to all of animal kingdom or that it's restricted to some other particular set. This is just how information behaves at the mammalian level, the hominin level, the the virus level, right? I mean, when we study high dimensional data, we have an understanding of what it looks like, right? And if you spend a lot of time with data, right, you are looking for needles in a haystack, you're looking for those pathings, right? Or various other things, then this is the type of thing that you would be studying. This is the type of stuff you would be simulating. And so when there's a presentation that's like, well, we have two disjoint groups, chimpanzees and humans, and there's a question about how far apart they are, the farther apart you make them, the less likely that their taxonomical structures are going to end up closer to each other, or their DNA structures are going to end up closer to each other. And this is like at an incredibly high exponential rate, right? If you say that they differ by 1,000 dimensions, or 100,000 dimensions, or 5 million dimensions, I mean, like, what level do we need to be at, right? But more importantly, I granted that. I said, let's just assume that they somehow magically merged together. What happens when you merge paths together and then you attempt to distinguish them when they have such high incredible variance, or such low dimensionality, or such an incredible number of generations have passed that would merge them together? They become undistinguishable, right? And that's just like mathematically required. You would not be able to distinguish the data if they had such high variance. That'd be impossible. And that's the whole point, is that there's a breakdown of the discontinuities that are being claimed in the past, right? And they would still exist if they did exist at all, right? But we don't see that. We see very nice, clean lines going into the past, maybe a couple of holes here and there, lots of complicated branching and whatnot, but real data, calculating real significance here. So I don't know. I wasn't trying to be dishonest in any way, so I feel like Donnie was being a little mean for no reason. But that's me. I don't know.
All right, we're gonna end it right there.
Sure.
All right, guys. Go ahead and hit that like button. We just got through the rebuttals. So we did the opening statements. That was 15, 8 minutes, back and forth through rebuttals. We're going to get into the open discussion here. And you guys can ask each other questions, things like that. Go back and forth. Just be cordial is all I ask, and try not to get too off the rails here. I don't want to have to go to timed responses, so that's the main reason I'd jump in. Is just if the audience can't hear because you guys are talking over each other. So keep that in mind, and I'll start the timer now. So whenever you guys are ready.
Okay, I'll start since they just ended with the rebuttal. So my quick question. The topic, Adam and Eve or separate ancestry versus human evolution. So in terms of the points of evidence that we provided, the discontinuities in genetics, genetic data being the best way to answer the question of ancestry. Y-chromosome dissimilarity when you consider overall architecture, size differences, and gene content. For sake of time, I won't, but if we need to, I can pull up the numerous papers going over the massive differences in human and chimpanzee Y chromosomes, less than 30%. So I didn't see any answer to that. I didn't see any answer to the hyoid bone discontinuities or mitochondrial DNA mutation rate data. Why don't we start with the Y chromosome? Bobby and Dr. Greg, how do you address, according to the human evolution model, how humans and chimps, if they truly do go back to a common ancestor roughly 6 to 9 million years ago, how do you explain the fact that they have 70% difference in the Y chromosomes?
Have you ever looked at like DNA in a sequence viewer before?
I've done blast analyses.
Okay.
I've never
Yeah,
looked
dude,
at.
a lot of them are just like the repeat regions and stuff like that. And that's the reason why those are the parts.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
That's it.
Are you saying your answer is so your answer to why humans and chimps differ, because I could screen share the visual that I had up on screen. They differ largely in architecture, size differences, and gene content. So for example, the chimpanzee Y has lost apparently the entirety of its heterochromatic arm. Heterochromatin is densely packed DNA, comprises a lot of repetitive sequences, as you said. Okay, but the chimpanzees basically lost apparently the entirety of that heterochromatic arm. So from the split, if you want to model this out, this has to be empirical, right, Dr. Greg? So you have humans and chimps. They go back to a common ancestor roughly 6 to 9 million years ago. How, when why and where did these changes take? Because I think you just asserting, well, these are repetitive sequences. Well, it is a lot more than just repetitive sequences. So where's your model accounting for these differences, Dr. Gray?
What do we actually use for the DNA mutation rates? Where do we actually, with the molecular clocks, what do we actually use?
Oh, well, it depends. You can use, well, I don't know how this answers the question I just asked, but
what do we actually, because we don't look at that. We don't look at, you're cherry picking data from,
well, I'm not cherry picking data.
Yeah, I did. If I called Makova from Makova et al. Right now, do you think that their conclusion would be that humans started 6,000 years ago? Or do you think that you'd cherry pick their data and their figure? And
so I'd like to respond to that. So you did this in your rebuttal, Dr. Greg. You failed to demarcate between the data and the interpretation of the data. See, there's a difference there. If you're dealing with the actual data itself, then I'm not obligated to accept the author's interpretation, because there can be disagreement on how those things. Yeah, I mean, I can give you examples. So, dinosaur soft tissue, for example, is something that we find within the geological record. And Mary Schweitzer is the one who discovered that. Now, people will say regularly, well, Mary Schweitzer, let me answer the question.
I just want to ask, how old does she say it is?
I'm sorry.
Let him finish real quick, and then you can talk next.
Began in the middle of mine. So Mary Schweitzer discovered dinosaur soft tissue. This is relevant to the question. And she published. And so the question, well, she disagreed on the conclusion of that. Her conclusion was that it was millions of years old. But Mark Armitage, he's also published more than Mary Schweitzer on the topic. He's a biblical creationist too. So here we see an example of somebody looking at the same data and coming to a different conclusion. Would you accept that the Earth is young because of Mark Armitage's publications? Or would you then acknowledge the demarcation between the data and the author's opinion or interpretation of the data?
Right.
What did you say,
publish
Mr.
It. Publish it.
You say good docs.
Yeah.
All right, axiomatic.
He's published over 120 times in the secular peer review. So again, with my question, would you then demarcate between the data?
The Earth was 6,000 years old, or did he publish on other topics?
Yeah, so can you answer my question?
Bobby, you're dodging. Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. This is the 5 Ds of evolutionist dodgeball. Please address the points, the arguments. Not a single question, point, or challenge has been addressed by you evolutionists here tonight. So address Sam's point that there's a difference between the data and then the interpretation. You guys don't know how to look at the technical
Donny, well,
papers.
let's let him respond.
Go ahead.
I'm not trying to dodge, Donny. I'm sorry. I'm trying to have a cordial conversation.
I'll forgive you.
Yeah, thank you. So the question was, right, is the particular author you're referencing, did they publish in a peer-reviewed literature where the conclusion was the Earth is 6,000 years old, right? I'd love to see the publication. I'd love to see the particular journal that did it. I'm unaware of any such thing. To go back to Mary Schweitzer for a second, she says that this is 65 million year old tissue.
You didn't answer my question.
Now, to be clear, and I've had to do this.
Let's give him a couple more seconds here.
Yeah, just a second. I've had to do this with a couple of other people in discussions, right? When we use the word tissue in archaeology, it's very different than when we use the word tissue in like biology or something, right? Tissue has to do with literal like remnants. So when you're like a cell is like this big, right? And millions of little parts of it are going to be things like hema and, various other little tiny molecules or whatever. Those can be referenced as tissue, as can be seen, for example, in the fossilized red blood cells, right? They're fossilized, meaning the majority of them is gone, right? The vast majority of it has been literally mineralized into literal fossil. But you can take a slice of the bone and hold it up, and we can see that dinosaurs probably had red blood. And it's because there's so much hema there that we can see it, right? But hema is like on the size of like basically a molecule. Whereas like a cell is an actual living thing.
Real quick, I just want to make sure this is, I was just going to say, I just want to make sure, Bobby, that this was in response to the question. And if maybe you could repeat the question just to be clear.
Yeah, really quick. So to correct Bobby, I mean, they found proteins, they found nerves, they found fibers, they found all of the stuff in there.
Yeah, but they find these in comets.
The question is, again, Bobby.
They find these in outer space.
Bobby. The question is, if an author's conclusion of the data is contradictory to your naturalistic conclusion, would you then make a bifurcation or a demarcation between the data itself and the interpretation of the data. This isn't even controversial.
That's
You've
never published a paper, so you don't understand this. But yes, the conclusions that you draw from the data are peer reviewed as well. The whole point of the editors and the peer review process is to make sure that you aren't making these leaps.
This doesn't answer my question.
I want to say this,
Except
in numerous of the papers, I'll throw it back to you, Sam. In numerous of the papers that I cited, for example, the Parsons, they admit right in the Parsons paper that I cited in the opening statement that if you take the molecular clock as is, the observed mutation rate in the mitochondrial DNA, we go back 6,500 years. And then they say, but of course that's incompatible with evolution. So perhaps X, Y, Z, many of these papers talk about, like in the Y chromosome, they'll say, well, perhaps it's sperm competition or faster rates of substitutions, but these are untested hypotheses. So Dr. Greg, are we just supposed to look at the data? Clearly it contradicts the human evolutionary model, but because they said, well, maybe this, maybe that, these are untested hypotheses, do we take those untested hypotheses as gospel?
They're not untested if they're in a publication. I mean, that's the whole point. And you take multiple publications to try to see how evolution works. Evolution is true because of physics, chemistry, biology,
well,
all these different
that's
fields.
Not something that you
no. Let him finish his statement. Let him finish the statement, please.
And that's how we have a convergence of these things that we know is true. So again, so if you understand, Donny, how to make mutation rates 30 times faster than what we observe, why aren't you going and using it to make directed evolution experiments to make new medicines like David R. Liu is doing for cancers? Or what do you like? Why are you wasting your time here instead of publishing this on peer-reviewed papers and contributing to the field?
Because Greg, you understand that it's the government that provides the funding for these, right? So Greg, can you tell me what happens? Well, you can giggle all you want, but Greg, can you tell me what happens to somebody's job when the government cuts their funding?
Oh my God!
Here's the issue. Like, yeah, if
you mean all 200
case,
governments around the planet?
Greg, if it was the case, if it was the case that the government divided up that money equally, well, then we would have an answer to that question. Is it? You guys are funded by the government, but again, I will just take.
You are too. Churches aren't taxed.
Greg, I will just.
Churches aren't taxed, my dude.
Guys,
what are you talking about?
Guys, the topic is human evolution.
We're not.
Sam, continue your thoughts. Governments, taxes. We can show you the predictions that have flowed exactly from the mutation rate. I have a question for Bobby and Dr. Greg. Not every single paper that I cited in my presentation was written by a conventional scientist or somebody who holds to the evolutionary model. Which one of my papers on mitochondrial DNA diversity? Diversity is low. We know the mutation rates are fast. Doesn't take much time at all to accumulate those DNA differences. Which paper from the conventional literature that I cited was written by a young Earth creationist?
Bro, you're just cherry picking data from the.
Well, again, that's maybe you didn't hear my question. I actually a pretty simple question.
I mean, you can interrupt me all you want because you don't want me to say it, but the reality is
you didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. You didn't actually present data, right? You presented quotes from within the paper. So like of interest would be things like
data, yeah.
Of interest would be things like the test statistic and the data that you can go download and where it came from and those types of things.
Give me a heads up before you do that.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
because Dr. Greg mentioned Makova.
So he can't just share his screen. He's taking it over. Wait. He can't just share his screen mid-debate and he just hog the mic the entire time because he's sharing his screen. Is that what's happening?
You can share your screen. You just gotta let me know, and then we'll set a actual firm time on it, 20 seconds.
If you wanted to go
the
through
screen share, but Dr. Greg,
systematically,
you mentioned Makova. So how does Makova address I'm assuming you're familiar with the literature. How does Makova address the massive dissimilarities between humans and chimpanzees in terms of their Y chromosomes, less than 30% the same, differences in architecture, size differences, and gene content? And after you answer that question, show me your model accounting for those differences, Dr. Greg.
Makova's own paper. It said that there's only a 2% divergent rate in that entire paper.
Divergence rate, whole genome. Well, not just the Y chromosome.
No, it's Y chromosome.
The Y chromosome is 70% different.
No.
Yes. I just pulled up the paper, but you don't want to see it on screen.
Yeah,
70%
what was up with
different.
that?
Dude, no, that you're cherry picking data from its own paper. And
Are
their
you
own
denying the
paper,
fact that the Y chromosomes between humans and chimps are only 30% the same?
it has there are regions that are repeats. They're like, I don't know how to tell you this,
understand.
but there are spots of the genome that are just repetitive inverse repeats and repeats of so that's just what it is. I mean, it's not a big, like, genetically we see this a lot, especially in terminator regions of a genome and that kind of stuff. So it makes sense that there would be stuff like that.
I don't feel like
Okay,
that
so
answered
but
the
how
question.
come in the original paper that came out on the Y chromosomes, which I could screenshot, I won't, they talk about how this was a surprise. This was unexpected that the Y chromosomes would be so different. And if you're just going to chalk it up to repetitive sequences, stick with the heterochromatin. Why is the entirety of the heterochromatin lost or missing in the Y chromosome of chimpanzees as compared to the humans? What happened to that heterochromatin within that split?
Again,
6 to 9 million years. What happened?
Again, if you were trying to actually factually do this, you haven't been able to actually say what we actually use as the molecular clock to see how these things are actually, related. So you wouldn't be cherry picking one paper about one genetic element. You'd be using multiple papers and just showing. And I'm not going to tell you what it is because I want to see if you actually understand what the actual molecular clock is that we use in order to
I understand
track.
what molecular clocks are, but I
Okay,
think you
which
need
one
to be
would
more
we
specific.
use? No,
Well,
there's
if you're
very
doing
similar.
mitochondrial DNA, you can use a pedigree study. You can look at like Parsons looked at many different
No.
families, large
No,
demographics.
no,
You
you
can
Why
look
not?
at
You
whole
don't.
genome sequencing if you want to compare. Are you talking about comparing the
No,
actual
you don't do
DNA
whole
differences?
genome sequencing for molecular
Hey,
clocks, my dude.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Can I
Yeah,
No,
you can
don't.
use
Can I-
databases like Parsons used the FBI database. Depends on the
Oh my
study.
gosh. Okay.
Dr.
I-
Gray,
can I-
Not for paternity. Not for paternity, like you said, right?
Bobby,
for
sorry,
paternity, you'd have to look
Wait,
at fathers,
do you want to cut in here real
sons,
quick, Bobby?
grandfathers. Yeah.
just for a moment, I'm just out of curiosity. Like, we're getting down into the weeds of like specificity of like different metrics that are being picked on DNA comparison or whatever, right? And like, I'm kind of curious why there's such interest in keeping the conversation in this like highly specific sentence from this paper, sentence from that paper, right? Obviously, you've already agreed, right? The majority of the papers don't agree with the conclusion that you're presenting. And just in general, right? Regardless of the metric you pick, like we haven't gotten any model on the kind side or
Oh, no, I
the-
showed you
All
the
that we
model.
give
I
models,
showed you the model.
right? And we
How do you reconcile that? How do
your
you
modeling
reconcile-
can't work, right? Because you
No,
didn't
but how
engage
do you-
with any of my arguments, did you?
But
So
how do you reconcile high dimensional data does not do what you're saying it does?
Well, actually,
Like-
I showed you data that contradicted you. I showed you the
So
baromenology.
how
I showed you the
what-
baromenology that clusters humans. Oh, actually, that brings you talking about discontinuities. Can you explain or show me the transitional series? We'll move to another topic. That's fine. The hyoid bone, which is designed and built in humans, helps with our ability for sophisticated speech. Okay, we have a major discontinuity here because the hyoid bone in chimpanzees and extant apes, Bobby, that is comparable to what we know about the Australopithecines and their hyoid. They're designed
So-
in the same way. Well, I'm almost done. They're designed in the
Right.
same way as extant apes. Well, wait a minute. You're saying that Australopithecines are in the hominin human line.
Sure.
So explain that discontinuity. Where's that transitional series from an ape-like hyoid not designed for sophisticated speech like we see in extant apes and Australopithecines to a hyoid, and I showed an image of the three hyoids compared in my presentation, to a hyoid like we have as humans designed for sophisticated speech. Go ahead.
So how much dimensional difference was there between chimpanzees and humans 6,000 years ago? Was
Well,
it 1,000 dimensions?
in the statistical
10,000
baromenological
dimensions?
analyses, I don't know the exact dimensions. I showed you the paper that shows the clustering.
Do you
Okay,
know
I
how we
guess-
factor out dimensions? Like if I wanted to find a dimensional difference between two data sets, how would I do that?
You tell me.
yeah, hold on a second. So questions are not arguments. And so,
Yeah, are you going to answer the hyoid continuity or no?
You can't answer a question with a question.
Sure,
That's not
sure.
how
If you'd like
debate
me to,
works.
if you would like me to personally concede, I don't know anything about
That would be
chimpanzees
fine.
specifically,
Yeah,
but
you
that's
can concede
beside the
rather than
point. I've
dodge.
asked repeatedly how you merged high-dimensional data sets together like that.
You're
Okay,
the
well,
one
doesn't make any
I
sense.
can show you. I can show you from the article. So it says statistical studies of Australopithecines have shown that.
I mean, from the math.
Well, you're gonna have
So,
to look
like-
at the entire technical paper to see the math about the multi-dimensional scaling graph that is shown.
What about
Well, how
high
do you just answer
dimensional?
how do you just answer the question about the hyoid bone? Where's
Yeah,
the
this is
transitional
dodgy.
series?
I don't know anything about hyoid
Okay, so
bones.
you can concede
So
that
about
point. Let's move on to
yeah,
another.
right.
That's
So
okay.
on
Right.
the
Instead of
informational
dodging, just admit
dimensions,
you don't have.
can we
Yeah,
go
there
back
you
to the
go.
informational dimensions? How in the world is it that you have two different starting places that are 1,000 dimensions apart, and then they stochastically make themselves towards each other within 6,000
Well, you're assuming the
years?
creation model wouldn't predict hierarchies. I went over my model in my rebuttal about hierarchies.
Hierarchies?
Yeah, well, the fact that humans and chimps share more, that there's overlap in morphology, there's
So they
overlap in the
right,
statistics.
right. So when I say independent dimensions, I mean you take the two species groups, you factor out all the dimensions they have in common. How many independent dimensions do they have?
Yeah.
That was my question.
And that's what they do at the baraminology. That's where we find the
right. And how
discontinuities
many
in
is
fossil.
that? What percentage of the DNA do you think
Enough
is
to
different?
separate the kinds, and that's why you don't have an answer.
Excellent. And so then you
I
have
showed
to
you
answer the-
70% difference
Right,
in the
right.
Y chromosomes.
So
There you go.
how are you merging high dimensional data together? Right.
We got to take all these independent lines of evidence, the fossil data, the mutation. We still haven't received an answer to the mitochondrial DNA. I mean, you can laugh all you want, but you failed on the Y chromosome data. Yeah, the Parsons paper
I'll
itself
take it as a
literally
non-answer.
says.
All right, let's let Dr.
It's fine.
Greg
It's fine.
respond to the what was it,
Yeah, we can
mitochondrial
move
point?
on. It's fine.
Again,
Yes,
okay,
the-
so
yeah,
from
the
Markova
mitochondria.
Okay, Donnie,
2024.
he's responding.
Cool.
Just say cherry picking and pretend that actually engages.
All right, Sam, hold on, let him respond.
Okay. Okay, only 14 to 27% of the Y chromosome was covered by alignments to other ape Y chromosomes. Okay, a separate sentence. The human chimpanzee's divergent was 2.68% on the Y chromosome and 0.97% on the X chromosome. So
And that matches.
That's not matching what you're saying.
Yeah, well, it
And-
matches the created kind model that I'm suggesting with the
doesn't.
great apes.
No, it
Yeah,
doesn't.
I'm not saying all the great apes are related. The Y chromosome data would suggest that, yeah, what you're saying is there's divergence or differences within the great apes. So you'd have one pan kind, chimpanzees and bonobos. They go back to a common ancestor. You've got gorillas as their own kind based on actually the gorilla Y and the human Y are more similar to each other than either is to the chimp Y. And then you have orangutan Ys that put them as the same kind.
So was HIV on the ark?
No, I don't think so because HIV is an exogenous retrovirus. I'm surprised you didn't bring up ERVs as your best evidence for human evolution. What's the deal there, Dr. Greg?
Are you dodging? Why are you dodging, bro?
No, I'm saying
It's
HIV
okay. No,
is an exogenous retrovirus. I think that came about after the flood.
So were viruses on the ark?
Well, endogenous retroviruses and various classes of retro.
No. Sorry, stop dodging. Were viruses on the ark?
Well, I think a lot of the viruses that we see came from host genomes. Like, yeah. Well,
So do you think
are
that
you not
viruses are
familiar
real?
with your own literature? The escape hypothesis?
Do you think that viruses are real?
Of course, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
HIV
I don't know.
virus is real.
A lot of creationists that I debate nowadays are saying that viruses don't exist. So I'm glad that you at least say that
we
viruses
agree there.
exist. Okay, there you go. I'm good. I'm glad. Hey, I count that as a win. So all the viruses that exist on the world today, and there are more viruses on Earth today than there are stars in the sky, and you're going to tell me that all of those different kinds of viruses all evolved after post-arc?
Well, a couple points, and I'll address them in turn. I don't know how this demonstrates the validity of human evolution. Secondly, we would have to get into our model on endogenous retroviruses and and we will. I'm happy to do it, Dr. Gray. You could shake your head all you want. We have in and on our bodies more, and you're a microbiologist. You can correct me if I'm wrong. We have in and on our bodies more viruses than we do cells, than we do bacteria. Most of them are just beneficial, dormant, probably helping to regulate the amount of bacterial species that we have. So the majority of viruses on the planet, in and on our bodies, are not harmful. They're actually beneficial. I have an article I could show you, I won't for sake of time, where it says you wouldn't want to live in a world without viruses. They help to regulate so much in the ecosystem. This goes back to the creation model that, and I can throw it back to you for endogenous retroviruses. Adam and Eve and the original created kinds would have been designed with functional ERVs. I showed several papers in my rebuttal, Dr. Greg, where ERVs are functional in embryological development, functional in the immune system, tumor suppression. But even your own side, I was listening to a lecture from a PhD virologist where he said that exogenous retroviruses may have borrowed or hijacked an ENV gene from a host genome and originated from pre-existing retrotransposons. I have no problem with that. We would say after the flood, that's probably what happened, and that we could trace exogenous retro. Are you disagreeing with your own side on that issue, Dr. Greg?
No, I love, and it's just funny when you with some things that you say you believe in, you bring these things in, and some things you don't, which is just funny. So I guess are positive strands and negative strand RNA viruses, and then double-stranded RNA viruses and DNA viruses, are they like separate kinds, or are they like, how does it work? How does the ARC math work?
Think most,
and like bacteria, yeast, alga, like, I mean, we have like 20 million species of those. I mean, so are we, like, that's a quite a culture setup that's on the ARC.
I think the majority of your harmful viruses, like RNA viruses or exogenous retroviruses, came from host genomes off of the ARC, probably from previous, but that's what I'm saying. You're asking, were they on the ARC? Yeah, I'm saying they originated most likely after the flood due to environmental conditions, errors in the recombination process. This goes right back to the escapee hypothesis that you guys put forth for the origin of RNA viruses. Because you're a microbiologist, I'd be curious as to your response to this. What came first, the host or the retrovirus? Because from my understanding, Dr. Greg, retroviruses require a host to replicate.
All right, well, let's give him a solid chance to respond here.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that's the cool thing about viruses, is that there is no common ancestor between all of them. So that's why your whole, they're only going to come from the host doesn't make any sense. It's because you would have DNA signatures of these viruses, and they would link up and align. And it's, so you just disproved yourself, my man.
Well, I'm not saying every single virus originates.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
I'm talking about retroviruses.
That's because that's all you understand, and that's because you've cherry picked the conspiracy in your brain, and that's all you understand. But
no, it's not a conspiracy.
It's a conspiracy for sure.
I have an entire presentation that goes over from your own side where they say that exogenous retroviruses probably originated from host genomes. They probably borrowed an ENV. How do you explain functional endogenous? I showed you a paper where endogenous retroviruses or functional and embryological development. If you remember, it said if we didn't have ERVs, Dr. Greg, humans and mammals literally wouldn't exist. So how did that come about?
Placental. Yeah, it's the placental gene. Yeah. And guess what? It actually happened multiple times. So
that's your assertion, but I'm asking for the evidence.
That's what it shows through sequencing. That's what sequencing shows. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Okay, show me the sequencing. So are you saying a non-functional endogenous retrovirus gained the ability for embryological development because we see it in the sequencing?
Yes, and it's so important that there is multiple events, and yes, they have different like, yeah, they have different types of
well, can you show me it in a lab, a non-functional ERV gaining a function in the immune system, embryological development?
Yeah,
that's what we see in the
genome
literature.
Genome shuffling. Yeah, you can do that all the time.
Yeah, but so you're saying because of genome shuffling, you have a pre-existing retrotransposon that gains the ability for placental function?
Yes, my dude, genome shuffling is a huge thing, and it makes a big difference for viruses. That's how SARS-CoV-2 exists, because of a genome shuffling event in a wet market and Wuhan. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, how come Dr. Rob Carter and Dr. John Sanford, their PhD young Earth creationists, they published a paper in the conventional literature, you can pull it up right now if you want, on the H1N1 virus. And I think it was in 60 to 90 years, it went extinct due to rapid genetic degeneration and mutation accumulation, consistent with genetic entropy. Are you familiar with that, Dr. Greg?
Yeah, genetic entropy is another one of these buzzwords that you guys create, like micro
It's
and
right there
macro
in the conventional
evolutions.
literature. I
No,
just
it's
showed you.
not. It's
I
no,
just
it's
Donnie,
showed you.
Donnie, let
No,
him get a
I'm
full
sorry, go
response out,
no,
please.
SARS-CoV-2 doesn't even interact with genetic entropy anyway, because at every single step between alpha, delta, omicron, gamma, SARS-CoV-2 actually evolved higher fitness at every single rate. So if genetics is just accumulating deleterious mutations until the end of the organism, why is SARS-CoV-2 the existing like evolutionary research that we just went through? You could look at that, and I mean, SARS-CoV-2 is the most sequenced organism of all time now, and you could just do that, Donnie. If you were actually serious about this, you could actually just apply it to SARS-CoV-2, but you don't. You cherry pick these 30-year-old papers trying to get these gotchas, and you're reusing slides that you've been debunked 10 different times.
Well, okay. Well, a couple things. There's so many assertions there. We'll take it one at a time, just so not to go on too many rabbit trails. A new look at an old virus, patterns of mutation accumulation in the human H1N1 influenza virus since 1918. This was published. You can look it up, Dr. Rob Carter. Look at PubMed Central. Rob Carter and John Sanford. They're both young Earth creationists, and they talk about how influenza viruses have high mutation rates. This is from 2012. Is that 30 years ago? And H1N1 has undergone significant genetic changes since 1918. And they talk about essentially how this virus went extinct due to rapid mutation accumulation, genetic degeneration. Look it up yourself. That's right in the conventional
Do you think
literature.
that every single virus that has ever existed exists right now?
No,
Okay, yes. So they go extinct sometimes. Yeah,
because of genetic entropy.
no, my dude.
Well,
No.
I mean, that's what they point out in the paper. And then
That's-
this applies to humans. We're
No.
accumulating deleterious mutations. Oh, I want to
No.
ask you, I want to ask you guys.
No,
Okay.
no. Again, no. There's no evidence of genetic entropy.
Absolutely there is.
No, there isn't. No, there
I can
isn't.
show you several papers. That's
why
one
didn't
of
we
them.
see it with SARS-CoV-2?
Well, we saw it with H1N1. I don't know why we didn't see
Why-
it with SARS-CoV-2, because viruses, bacteria, humans, we got to observe them on their own merit. Bacteria, Lenski's bacterial
they
experiment.
don't.
Okay,
No,
well,
the mutation rate is similar. The mutation rate is similar across these things. They are. And
okay,
that's the
but
whole point.
how do you, if genetic entropy is not real, okay, are most mutations neutral? Yes or no?
It matters. I just saw a new paper about this. It's interesting. I mean, you want to preserve as much genetic diversity as possible. So it's usually a good thing.
Okay. So how functional would you say the genome is of humans? Percentage wise?
Well, it's protein coded is like 2%.
Okay. What about non-coding?
I mean, ERVs is accounting for like 8%. So I think that, I mean, technically, I mean, if you wanted to say that we were created in God's image, I think that he's a virus probably. So that's kind of cool. That God is some giant virus. Or technically, we actually have like more bacteria in us and in our gut than
Right.
humans. So technically, like God might be a virus or a microbe.
No, because these things are beneficial, functional. So I showed a paper from the ENCODE. There's been subsequent projects. I showed papers on functional pseudogenes, ERVs, ALU sequences. I'm not sure if I showed a paper on that, but we have that as well. Okay. So the ENCODEs pointed out that 80% of the genome has evidence for biochemical activity. Do you believe that that's just spurious, noise, or actual function, Dr. Greg?
Dude, there's a lot of different ways that they can have like transcription factors, a lot of different things which require specific like sequences for those transcription factors.
Right. So, well, are you saying that this would be functional transcription then, or just noise? All these transcripts being produced.
Outside of it, then yeah, the part that is considered like junk, the sequence could change and it wouldn't impact that. That's the whole reason why they're sequence independent.
Okay. So this 80% activity, 60 to 80% transcription, I believe, DNA to RNA, and like you said, 2% is protein coding. If the majority of that 80% is functional, wouldn't those neutral mutations be nearly neutral, slightly deleterious rather than just strictly neutral? If they're hitting functional spots in the genome, but they're not big enough for selection to see. It's not hitting a region that's essential for reproduction, basically.
I mean, it would matter. It would matter what the selection event is. It matters what matters what it is. Because sometimes
how do you
go ahead.
just out of curiosity, how do you pre-select something being useful until like the environment takes effect, right? Like a species ends up with a mutation in it, right? And then generations go by, and then something maybe becomes useful that has spread around into the species. I don't understand how you would calculate something in advance being useful or not.
Yeah, but
useful.
usually even those are reductive.
Yeah, you're just saying it carries around all of this baggage.
No, I'm
and
just
hope for a
saying
hope
that
and a
like
prayer that
you
maybe
asked
someday
him a
it'll be useful.
question.
But the problem
Hold on,
is
hold on.
the problem is there that natural selection.
I'm just
would
curious
select for
why
that
you
thing and
asked him a
take it out, right?
question.
Can you tell
No,
me
I'm
what
just
a,
curious.
Well, Sam,
can you
hold
tell
on.
me what
curious.
a bird does with like
I'm-
a half arm, half
I'm
One
leg?
sec,
just
Sam. I'll
curious-
let you ask the full question there. Just Axiom, wrap that up real quick, and we'll let Sam ask his question.
I was just asking because it sounded like you were asking Dr. Greg, like, you know, that what is the property of this particular mutation, as though that's something that could be assessed.
It can be
before we see the data.
Okay, Sam.
I have an entire.
Donnie,
president,
let's let Sam ask what he wanted to know.
Let him answer because he's asking a question about teleology. I'd love to hear it.
Okay, I thought you had a separate question to ask.
Are you? Am I answering it
Yeah.
or Sam? Well,
No, Dr. Greg, yeah, Axiomatic rightfully pointed out that Dr. Greg's argument there is for teleology. So how do you answer that?
I don't even know what is teleology. I don't even know what that is.
Like a fine tuning or something like has intention.
Not completely off topic.
Because
That was your argument. Like, how does evolution know that something is going to be beneficial later on down the road? It's just going to throw all of these parts in the back, right? It doesn't. Exactly.
It doesn't.
Exactly. So if evolution
correct.
creates some strange morphological feature like a bird with the half of an arm wing, is that going to be removed from the environment?
No, that thing would die off.
So you're going to have a problem.
Yes, it would.
It would not
Your
reproduce.
whole model is kind of goofy in that way.
What are you talking about, dude? We
literally do it in computers. We literally do neural networks. We start them in random states. They converge with stochastic gradient descent. We force this to happen. This is literally, we do this in the laboratory. We literally take a bacteria.
That's
we literally take bacteria and do this. What are you talking about?
But how come bacteria experience reductive evolution too? I mean, look at Lenski. He's demonstrated after generations.
New things, right? What is the citron thing? They eat citron.
Yeah.
So hold on. Let me.
How do you demonstrate that wasn't already there as a pre-existing ability to do so?
Well, they did. They went
Donnie,
through the DNA and demonstrated new features.
Want to give Sam
about?
a chance to ask what he was going to.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sam.
So we had Dr. Bundy on, right, Donnie? He came and debated Dr. Kent Hovind. And in that debate, Dr. Bundy conceded that when we make that distinction between like speciation or micro and macro evolution, there's nothing that is indicative of these evolutionary processes that you're talking about in these Linsky's laboratory.
Bundy?
I'm almost done. He earned both of his PhDs in that laboratory. So
I don't know who Bundy is.
It's really Bundy.
There's nothing within your long-term Linsky's E. coli experiment that
why are we
in
talking
any way
about
macro evolutionary processes.
There is no micro and macro evolution.
Because you brought up the citrate, did you not?
There is no such thing as micro versus macro evolution.
Well, that's what you're here to debate. That just begs the question.
That is you are proposing
you're
that.
Begging the question.
So please let me know. Okay, so if you're such a let's give you this. Let's give you micro that it exists. Okay, what is limiting in micro evolution so that macro evolution can't happen?
Yeah, no problem. So here's another error. So you're asking for some sort of like mechanistic or biochemical border parameter. But we also understand, right, that we're going to point to certain laws of nature that govern the physical world. We would say that the supernatural laws of physics, things like that. This is something that I brought up in my debate. I'd love for you to engage with. The physical world is bound by laws of nature that are not, that on your terms, you would have to say that they don't stand in the cause and effect relationship. Would you like me to demonstrate that for you?
Hang on, I feel like there's a slight divergence here. It sounds like you're talking about like unfalsifiable positions.
I know that would be yours, right? And Dr. Greg just
those can just be granted. You can take an unfalsifiable position that doesn't have anything to do with the discussion. If we're interested in science, then we're not interested in those particular positions. So why would we be talking about those?
So this is another blunder, Bobby, because Dr. Greg literally
No, it's not a
just
blunder.
argued. Excuse
No,
me,
it's
Dr. Greg,
literally a
excuse
fact.
me.
Do you agree?
Dr.
Do
Greg,
you agree?
Bobby, I know you're excited. I know you're
positions
excited.
like
You're going to get a
Like,
chance. So let
starting to
Sam
crash
finish.
out a little bit. Hey,
Do you
Dr.
consider
Greg
them
literally
anti-science?
You let me know.
You'll get a
done.
chance to ask your question and get a response. Let's just let Sam finish, and then we'll hit it over to you.
You're getting a little excited. So Dr. Greg just literally denied the distinction between micro and macro evolution. If that's the case, then he's just an evolutionary dogmatist, and he holds his position as though it is unfalsifiable. So, I mean, you guys got to figure out maybe backstage which position you want to take on this. But so Bobby,
Raise your hand if you've ever
could
done an evolution experiment before.
Bobby,
It's like, what are you talking about?
we're waiting for you guys to actually demonstrate that macro evolution is possible.
Hold on, Dr. Greg. One second, Dr. Greg. Let's go. Bobby respond, Dr. Greg respond, and then Sam or Donnie can take it over from there.
Yeah, I was just going to point out that I'm fairly confident Dr. Greg and I both would be happy to take any position on any matter. So if it turned out that the Earth was 6,000 years old, we'd be like, that's fantastic. And we'd love to dive into the data and look at the stuff and see this and see that. And so this equivocation of like, we're taking an unfalsifiable position. I'm not. I'm happy to go wherever the data is. And the data is that 99.9% of biologists out there do peer-reviewed literature in thousands of journals with hundreds of thousands of peer-reviewed literature, literally tabular information, data, information dynamics, and it's very clear what has been demonstrated. Yeah. We know that evolution is the way that it happened. This is like not even questionable.
I mean, that's your assertion.
Right. So it's not falsifiable. It's
pseudoscience. Okay, well, let's let Dr. Greg go. Sam.
Again, guys, let's you're falsifiable. Like, we use evolution in order to create things in science through new technologies. Yeah. So please, so if you that's how we show that evolution is true, because we literally use it as a tool. You're like going to a carpenter and saying, I don't believe that you have hammers exist, and you're just gonna watch me hammer out a whole house. And it's like, okay, well, you can deny that, but it definitely does exist. We literally use it. So please. Like, what was happening in David R. Liu's experiments when he was using a bacteriophage in order to introduce new DNA into these bacteria in order to create a better endonuclease for his CRISPR gene editing tools? Like let us know. Like, please let us know what was actually happening in that experiment. But you don't understand it because there's no new research or new ideas that you're actually bringing to the table, like, whatsoever. So please, how do we stop virological evolution? How do we stop it? Let us know. Like, please bring us like something so we can use it to create better vaccines.
You would save so many lives.
Hey, Bobby,
save so many lives.
It's our turn. It's our turn.
Yeah, it's Donnie Sam's turn now.
And then I'll go.
Thanks for the gish gallop and throwing a bunch of points. So,
cry bully, dude. Cry more.
Yes, yeah, excuse me. So Dr. Bobby, I would have thought, being that you are studied in logic, you would know better than committing a basic fallacy of appealing to a population. When you talk about going where the science and that's what you did. So many people believe it, then it must be the case, right? Like, I don't know what a paradigm is and how there are such things as competing paradigms. And I guess if enough people believe it, it must be true. That was your argument, which is silly.
Hey,
but the problem is,
happy to have
excuse me, I'm almost done.
It's our turn.
I'm almost done.
Yeah.
You guys need to exercise a little more self-control. Like, I patiently waited to refute you. When you talk about following the data wherever it leads, well, I give you arguments that undergird the entire scientific method. You didn't touch them. Being that you have a PhD in mathematics, you weren't able to tell me what grounds math and how mathematical modeling comports or overlays to the external world and does that universally. You're committing a composition fallacy, and then you want to talk about what's possible or impossible. Maybe you need to take another logic course. Talk about what's possible or impossible within the physical world. What are you going to refer to? Are you going to refer to laws, and all you're saying that by these laws is something that is a semantic descriptions of the way things are? On those terms, every instance of uniformity is just a coincidence.
It's my turn first.
You have no justification.
It's my turn.
We're gonna give.
Let me address Sam.
You'll be able to.
Dr.
No, I get
guys. No, just let me
address Sam.
Let me talk as the moderator real quick.
Okay, hand it to Mike.
First thing that we're gonna do, Bobby.
I need one
Sam.
more point.
Okay, I'll give you your point. But Bobby, first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna give Donnie 20 seconds on top of this, and then you'll have a full minute to respond if you like. And,
I only get 20.
Well, Sam's been talking right now, and I want to be able to turn it back and forth. We only have nine minutes left in the open discussion, and then we're gonna get into the closing statements.
So so I get to address that last point. So Dr. Greg, both you and Dr. Bob, you're making the same gross error. I made a clear distinction between high confidence and low confidence science. You're saying that, well, because somebody builds a house with a hammer, therefore evolution is true. No, I want to know something that you can show me objectively. When you point to permillarized fossils in the geological column, there's no empirical methodology to establish ancestral relationships there. So what are you exactly pointing to?
Okay, so I'll take, well, I guess 20 seconds. I'll be really quick. To land the plane, yes, everything that Dr. Greg is saying, and I appreciate it's been a good discussion so far. A couple of true professionals. This has been good. And so these advances we can do in medicine, for example, this is based on observable operational science. There's a lot of overlap in the creation versus evolution debate where we can agree on things, and as a result of that agreement we can advance in certain things like medicine, but it's the differentiating evidence. And I'm going to say this, Mike, and then hand it, so I need 10 extra seconds. I was asking Dr. Greg, how functional do you think the genome is? How limited or how strong is selection? That's the issue. The underlying mechanisms for evolutionary change, mutations and selection, most mutations are slightly deleterious due to the functional nature of the genome. Selection is limited, therefore mutations degenerate rather than take fish to fisherman or ape-like creatures to man over time.
Oh, can I respond?
Yeah. So you're going to have a full minute, and then we'll throw 30 seconds back to Dr. Greg afterwards, and then we'll let these guys respond.
Sure. All I wanted to say to Sam was I'd be happy to have a logic discussion with you or philosophy discussion with you. I think that'd be very fine and very fun. I'd love to educate you on how logic works and how it was developed and what the different rules are and the way it works. Zeroth order logic versus first order logic, or meta logic versus, your standard logic system, right? But, it feels a little frustrating that you throw out buzzwords and then attack like my degree. Technically, I'm not even a logician, but I've taken enough logic that I know how it works. I'd love to ask you questions about it, because it seems like I'm fairly confident you're unaware of the basic principles. But I'd love to get some answers on how you guys read scientific papers. If I go through some of these papers, I see things like PCA, LDA, dimension reduction, variance, standard error, test statistics, null and alternative hypotheses, right? I have a feeling that you guys don't know what those are, or you wouldn't know how to calculate them. I mean, that would be of interest to me to know whether or not you guys understand what these concepts are and how they work.
So all that just
I'm going to ask you a question then, Bobby.
That just to dodge,
Donny and Sam, I want to give Greg a chance to respond to what Sam was saying a second ago.
Okay, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember what he was saying. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask Bobby, what is heterozygosity?
I don't know.
Okay, well, we could test each other all day.
I'm not a biology.
Let's deal with the. I understand you're not a biologist,
but you're
Greg is
reading
a biologist,
paper,
and I was discussing earlier the creation model,
formula for standard error.
Suggests that God designed.
I can pull
Bobby, don't just talk at the same time, please.
But you're dodging all of our arguments. You want to do a quiz or a test.
I'm not a biologist.
I understand.
What are you talking about?
Dr. Greg is a biologist. We're not going to sit here and do tests all day. That's the whole point. You guys need to address the data. My challenge is
I'm just asking, what's a confidence interval?
Please, I got a basic question.
What's a confidence interval?
I showed several.
Just tell me. I
really want to know. We're not going to play.
What's the normal distribution?
We just played a creationist quiz.
Draw it.
Okay, so it's my turn because Dr. Greg gave up his time. So in the last few minutes here, I am very curious. The several papers that I cited, Parsons, Madrigal, Howell et al. Okay, there's others like Arnadottir, Helgeson was involved in that. So we have fast mutation rates. They admit directly in these papers that the observed mutation rates in mitochondrial DNA are 10 times, 20 times, 30 times faster than the phylogenetic rate. I showed a phylogenetic tree on the screen showing all the branches close together. You have that starburst pattern suggesting rapid and exponential population growth. They admit directly in the Parsons paper, if you take this molecular clock backwards in time, you get 6,500 years, okay? So what do you guys propose as a means to solve this discrepancy between pedigrees or the observed rate and the phylogenetic rate?
Yes, populations versus individual rates, dude. Again, you're conflating population genetics with like a single organism mutation rate. So it's just you conflate. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So like this is so the frustrating part, man, because it's just like I don't understand why. Like the medicine thing was like a complete cope. You're just saying that basically there are people that are religious that are doing and absconding everything that you're talking about. They're not going back to an Adam and Eve, which Eve, by the way, is genetically identical to Adam because she came from the rib, which is a XY cell. So they had to mutate or actually not mutate, clone the X chromosome for Eve.
Adam would
so
have been
then
created
Adam and
with
Eve.
pre-existing
Donnie, let him get his full
Adam-
response, then you can respond.
Even if he
Don
was,
wouldn't have figured
even
that
if he
out,
was,
right?
even if he was,
They're
I guess
gonna
he
invoke
didn't. I
matchups.
guess
because
I
the
guess he
Y
didn't.
chromosome.
Guys, don't make me mute you. We've gone the whole debate without me having to. I want to let Dr. Greg finish his thought, then you get a full
I
chance
thought he
to
was
respond.
asking me a point to address. Go
Again,
ahead, Dr. Greg.
even if Adam was created with the heterozygosity that you're talking about, that it's still an XY genome that is given to a person and double X female that needs to happen. So you're duplicating the entire genome, and then Adam and Eve are breeding with one another, which is breeding with the same genome. So it's just
No, because
it's insane. It's
no,
just,
because
nobody
in that
looks at that. Nobody looks, and we don't have any of the hallmarks of any of these other bottleneck signatures that we do see in nature. That we like, why don't we see any of that? Like, why don't we see any of the cheetahs, Tasmanian devils, elephant seals, all of these examples that we do have in our genetic lineage that we can see and look to?
All right, we got 2 minutes
well,
left.
there's the big.
Go ahead, take a full one,
I'll
Donnie.
say that's okay, and then you know what? To be fair, I'll take a minute.
Yeah, and then you'll get the
then we'll
last
throw it to
minute
Sam.
axiomatic, and then Donnie's gonna have to start the closing statements, and you guys will end with closings.
Oh, okay.
Recombination and gene conversion with pre-existing DNA differences would result in change in the very next generation. This model makes, and Dr. Greg, I mean, you can laugh all day, but face it, you're not related to ladybugs or grass. These scientists going into advanced medicine and healthcare, they're not thinking, oh, wow, I can only do this because I believe I'm related to ladybugs and grass and chimps. Wow, no, they're not doing that. And guess what? Bring them here on the panel. They're also not going to have answers to the hyoid bone discontinuity. They're not going to have answers to the Y chromosome dissimilarity. They're not going to have answers to the mitochondrial DNA mutation rates anyways. Okay, so yeah, the cheetahs, there's a famous DNA barcoding study where they concluded based on the CO1 gene in mitochondrial DNA, Dr. Greg, that there's low diversity across all species. And they conclude we fought against this as hard as we could. And because of that low diversity, they concluded all extant species came into existence at the exact same time. Oh, that's interesting. That sounds like the flood bottleneck. We also know that genetic diversity is low in humans. This came as a shock to evolutionary scientists. So they invented the out of Africa population bottleneck in order to reduce levels of heterozygosity and increase levels of homozygosity. Also, here's the last thing I'll say. Evolutionists like Dr. Greg, they forget the fact that inbreeding reveals the hidden reservoir of genetic mistakes. So yeah, cheetahs are down to, I think, 7,000. And they're highly inbred. A lot of deleterious mutations have come to the forefront. But guess what? Adam and Eve, being designed with high levels of heterozygosity and no deleterious mutation accumulation, it wouldn't be an issue because you don't have any deleterious mutations to come to the forefront, leading to rapid genetic degeneration.
All right, so we'll let you guys take the last response here, and then Donnie and Sam can work in whatever response they want into their 5-minute closing. So be smart about that, and go ahead, axiomatic or Dr. Greg, whoever wants to.
Do you want the closing, Dr. Greg?
This is just the last word. This isn't the closing.
Oh,
Oh.
okay. Yeah, go ahead, bro.
I would just want to know, Donnie, could you tell me the difference between PCA and LDA?
I'm not doing evolutionist tests.
All right, then we'll go into the closings then. If
I'm
you
not
guys
saying I don't know. I'm not saying I know,
anything.
but I ain't doing evolution.
Can you tell me the difference between standard deviation and standard error?
Yes, I can, but I'm not going to hear because you failed. Dodge,
Well,
duck, dip,
then
dive,
what's-
and dodge,
then what's
Bobby.
the
I know you're
difference?
excited.
What's
You
the
get the last
difference?
word, take it, and
What
tell
do
the
you
audience
divide
all
by?
about your failure tonight.
It would
Okay.
take- it would take
Hyoid
1
bone
second to tell me.
discontinuities, mutation rate data, DNA
Okay,
function.
Donnie,
Do you know what the empirical rule is?
we're gonna start the 5-minute
course.
closings. We're gonna start the 5-minute closings.
Why are you unwilling to say?
All right, Bobby.
Because Dr. Bobby, we don't play evolutionist quizzes. You fell for my quiz.
You're
and that's
dragging
cute.
this on. We could do
don't
this
think-
I'm
in
not a
the
biologist.
we could do this in the open or in the Q&A here. So
Fail?
I'm gonna start 5-minute timer. I'm gonna mute up opposing team.
Who starts? Us?
Yeah,
Or
you guys
the
are gonna you guys are gonna start your 5 minutes whenever y'all start talking, and then they'll get the last word since you guys opened. Got the
All right,
first
Donnie,
word.
give me 2 minutes at the most. Okay, so nobody addressed my opening at all, and I made it very clear that my opening necessarily needed to be addressed. I also gave a positive argument for the triune God of Scripture. No one wanted to touch it. It got super awkward when Dr. Bobby had an opportunity in the debate to actually ground mathematics, but instead of doing that, he just postured in how much he knew while dodging the actual question. Yeah, I want to know how math is possible and how it comports to reality. That's not something that was addressed. They also failed to make a distinction between high confidence and low confidence science multiple times. That's a blunder. They failed to make a distinction between the difference of the study and the author's interpretation of the data, even after numerous times we gave them examples of why this is a common practice, even in their own field. That's all I'm going to say about that.
All
Sam,
right, yep.
I'm still getting
4
ready. Can you
minutes
take 30 more
left.
seconds? Take 30 more seconds, brother.
Yeah. So the problem here is we came to debate about Adam and Eve. Our opponents did not give any arguments for evolution. They nitpicked our model, I guess you could say, but they didn't engage with the philosophy that we gave, the positive argument for the God who created Adam and Eve and why that God is necessary for the intelligibility of both math and science. And so if they're not able to engage with those arguments, then really everything that they discussed tonight, I mean, it was fun, but it's not meaningful. Yeah.
I'll screen share.
Okay.
And show some more of these papers. Mike, tell me when they're up.
You're good.
So again, they say cherry picking, even though we're looking at the data. The data suggests, you can see here in the Parsons paper, that Eve would go back just 6,500 years. My challenge right in the opening statement, and what Dr. Greg said, the difference between per generation and substitution. Yeah, we understand the difference between the per generation neutral rate, long-term substitution, right? But basic population genetics, I have quotes from Fatuma, famous evolutionary scientist, the neutral rate approximates the fixation rate. And in haploid chromosomes like the mitochondrial DNA, Dr. Rob Carter, who right here published the mitochondrial diversity paper within modern human populations in the conventional literature, showing how mitochondrial DNA has low variation. We know from pedigree studies that the rate is fast. This is Dr. Rob Carter's phylogenetic tree, for example. Again, there's only a couple hundred generations here. We never got an answer to how you get thousands of generations here, okay? Dr. Rob Carter graphed out here. Let's see what our interlocutors here who believe they're related to grass, whales, and pine trees have to show is how much selection can be invoked to slow down the observed fast mutation rate. And Dr. Rob Carter's already demonstrated that you can see here, the orange is your deleterious mutations, strictly neutral is your blue. Fitness goes down. Okay, Dr. Greg, he didn't fully give a clear answer. Maybe he can in his opening statement. We're arguing that over 80% of the genome is active and functional. There's functions for endogenous retroviruses. I got a whole bunch of slides based on work that I've personally done on the chromosome 2 fusion. Perhaps Dr. Greg wants to do a one-on-one in the future on that. That'd be fun. GULO pseudogene. So Dr. Rob Carter here demonstrated that fitness declines steadily, even with a rare beneficial mutation. You can see that down here going horizontally at the bottom. And your observed neutral rate, okay, and your long-term substitution or fixation rate, the time it takes for one letter to replace another letter in the whole population, they approximate each other. So the observed rate is fast. Long-term substitution rate is fast. And remember, the evolutionist model is the out of Africa model, where you have populations smaller for long periods of time. Therefore, you're going to have faster rates of fixation because natural selection will break down at that point. Genetic drift will be stronger. The biblical creation model, we have years 1 to 300 years after the flood, before the Babel dispersal. People are living hundreds of years, having lots of children. Mutation rate would be fast. And then all you have to have is a population of people with higher diversity after Babel moving into Africa. Africa starts off with more diversity. That explains your max differences in mitochondrial DNA, roughly 120, averages 20 to 30. This is biblical time. This is Adam and Eve right here. So again, they never addressed the challenge to show us how much selection
In seconds.
needs to be invoked to slow down the observed rate that confirms what? Confirms the biblical model of ancestry. I rest my case.
Alrighty, we'll give you guys 5 minutes on the clock here. 1 second. Restart. Okay. You're going to have to unmute.
I got you.
All right, go ahead.
So I love the default PowerPoint slide colors. I think that's that's if it's a legitimate publication. That's beautiful. I just want to say, during the debate, I mean, Donny admitted that all the viruses and microbes evolved after the flood, and I thought that that was really cool, because he basically admitted that different kinds of viruses, the positive, negative, double-stranded RNA viruses and double DNA viruses, all evolved after the flood. So he's accepting that different kinds of viruses did evolve. So he basically admitted that evolution is true. I appreciate that. And it also realized that 99.9% of microbes have never been sequenced or cultured in the lab. So they, it is the final frontier of biology. I think it's hilarious, the heterozygosity of Adam and Eve argument, considering that oh my gosh, there's all this genetic diversity. They're so different. Oh my gosh. And then their own story, this conspiracy, remember, goes to one dude, Noah, repopulating the earth after the flood. So again, like the extreme bottleneck again. So no, how is that not even talked about in their talk? Medical doctors use evolution all the time. Pig hearts are used for people. We actually use vaccines in other organisms in order to test them, because they're similar to us. They have similar immune systems to us, and they have similar immune systems because we evolved. We are animals. Humans are animals. And again, paternal testing, medical uses of vaccines, and of virus evolution, all of this stuff, all hinges on evolution being true and actually being demonstrated. And I love the high confidence versus low confidence science, considering that I've actually done directed evolution in the lab. I've done it. So again, Sam, please, let me know. We can share the Nobel Prize, and I can test you. We can share it if you want to actually ever do a science experiment in your life. That'd be cool. And also, Donny, it's called 16S ribosomal sequencing. That's what we use as a timepiece. But he doesn't understand that. He doesn't get that. So there it is. The fact that he didn't say that is pretty telling. So.
All right, 2.5 minutes left, Bobby, if you want to take it, and I'll take a Nobel Prize if anyone's sharing them.
Sure. Yeah, I can just reshare the screen, I guess.
Okay.
That's so I don't know. I feel like what's been demonstrated is a certain level lacking certain mathematical skills, right? I think it's fairly clear that they have no idea what PCA is, or LDA, or VAE, or standard error, or standard deviation. I almost be surprised if they know what the mean is, right? It's very unclear if they know what test statistics are, or how to calculate confidence intervals, or what a normal distribution is. There's this very odd argument that keeps coming out, which is saying something to the effect of, if we can demonstrate higher separation with some other metric, then that helps our model work out better. And it's like, no, that makes it work. That makes it worse, right? Like the demonstration that we can find more and more metrics that make these things more and more similar is just further and further evidence that these things are related. If you claim that all those models or all those metrics are crap, but that everything's actually completely disjoint, you end up with exactly the graph I presented because I simulated it, right? There was no consideration of my simulation. They didn't care at all about the mathematics. We could, apart from defining a sigma algebra and going through the rigorousness of it, we could basically make this a mathematical stochastic theorem. This doesn't make any sense, right? But I don't know. There's a whole list of things that are clear that I'm fairly confident they don't know anything about. And it's funny because like they're looking at these papers and looking at these images, but they don't even know how they're made or generated. And it just seems kind of ridiculous to me. So I don't know.
You have 45 seconds left if you wanted to
Well,
turn it back to
I don't
Dr.
know.
Greg. You have anything you want to say? Last 30
Sure.
seconds?
You want a few more seconds? I don't know. Thank you, Dr. Greg, for helping me. I mean, this has been fantastic. I think it's amazing that we can literally generate random data, and if it generates paths, right? It's like obvious, but it seems kind of weird to argue that there's pathing, right? I guess I should just point out before I stop screen sharing, this model is completely bogus, right? There is no such thing as we're all looking at the same data and just coming up like we're all this close, we're off by a hair, and it's really just a matter of opinion, and you get one model or the other. That's just a load of so
All that time and still didn't address my mutation rate challenge. That's unreal, gentlemen.
it was the closing. Really?
Yeah, you had the last word and you still didn't address
Why
it.
would I address what you were saying if you're just going over lines?
No
and
stone
faking
unturned
data
since that
and
evidence
presenting fake
demolishes your
information?
position?
What is PCA? Just tell me what PCA
Oh,
is.
because you failed my creationist quiz.
Just
you think
tell
you're
me
gonna
what
know.
PCA
Bobby,
is.
you failed miserably. And I
All
addressed
you have
Oh,
to do is
man.
say I don't know.
So basically, Bobby's argument is I'm good at
If you
math,
say
therefore I'm related
I said
to
I
Chris.
don't know, can you say I don't know?
Oh, man,
Because I've
Bobby.
shown you data point after
You're
data
unable
point
to
from
say
these
I don't
papers that
know?
clearly you don't understand.
Bobby, I apologize.
Just say I don't know.
The slide never switched to the open screen
Oh.
share thing there, so
Oh, I wasn't able to show the slides?
there were only bits and pieces of the slide showing. I'm not sure why my OBS like froze up on the scene switch.
well, that's sad.
I saw it.
Bobby, if it makes you feel better, I granted you math in my opening. I said you are good at counting, but not accounting for
Really?
counting. Remember
Explain
that?
to me what decidability is.
No, I granted that to you. You are good.
No, just
at
tell me what
counting.
decidability
Bobby's
is.
distracting from his
Bobby,
failure.
Do you know the difference
Dr.
between
Greg,
real quick.
decidability and solvability?
Real quick before that
No, you
goes
don't know
on.
what
Dr.
solvability
Greg,
is either.
Hold
I
on,
got
Donny,
you.
Donny,
Okay,
please
so you
don't
have no
interrupt.
idea, like,
Bobby, Donny, please
Goes
don't
in
interrupt.
greatness
I'm just trying to do something for the audience here. I want you without saying any of the information you were saying, Bobby, just go from the beginning slide to the beginning on the screen share. That way if someone wants to pause it and go back and listen to what you're saying while looking at the screenshots that they could take of those. I'm gonna screen share it one more time. This time I'm gonna see if this goes full screen again. And then
Like
just
this?
just go from where you started and then take like 2-3 seconds and go through each one real quick. You don't have to talk about them at all, and I'd prefer you didn't, just so we can get through it real quick.
Sure, yeah. All I did was present this one.
All right. Oh, that's the only one?
And then I pointed out this one.
Okay, cool. Now you guys in the audience know we're gonna go back.
How come there's no humans on that?
Okay, you
Terminology.
can exit out.
Oh,
of it.
they have that. No, they
The
have that.
debate was
Hang
human
on.
evolution.
No,
You're
they got-
talking about
they-
everything but humans.
Okay, here's all the
They
slides,
do the
audience.
monkey one right here.
Here's all the slides.
Oh, but how come you didn't account
Slide.
for the discontinuities?
Okay, guys, we gotta
They
get
put
into
all
the
the
Q&A. We gotta get into the
extinguisher.
Q&A. Please stop sharing your
It's
screen.
cute. It's cute, Bobby. Very cute.
All right.
This is your guys' presentation,
fine.
not mine.
Yeah, and you
I will
misrepresented
stop sharing
it.
then.
I
Got it.
misrepresented the fake drawings.
All right.
No.
Guys
I got
who have been super chatting, we're getting to your chats now. Just a moment. First, big thank you to everyone who upgraded their memberships to Debater, Spectator, and the Final Word. Final Word gets to live stream any of the DebateCon live events. So if you got a membership and you want to go upgrade it to that so you can watch, I highly recommend it. Unless you're going in person, that's going to be cool too. So we'll start from the top and get through these. Let's not take too long because we do have quite a bit to get to.
Is it possible that you do like a couple announcements really quick so I can go fill up my water?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Or 2 minutes or 1 minute, maybe.
Go
Unless
for
the
it
first
real
question's
quick.
for me or something.
Go for it real quick. First one's actually, I'm going to start with the $20 super chat from Mo Christians AA. This one's to Greg and Bobby. It says, Evos, how can a complex reproductive system evolve through natural selection when the intermediate stages must themselves reproduce and provide a selectable advantage? Evolution requires reproduction, which requires evolution.
Well, I mean, sexual selection is the hallmark of eukaryotic organisms, and we have that constantly. There's tons of different types of reproductive choice and types and genomes and gametes and all those different types. So we as humans, we're very human centered in our thinking of this, and we think like, what about a half penis, like what's that for or whatever. But in reality, it's like phalluses exist all the way back to like bacteria and sex pili. So it's like we aren't unique, as humans.
And that's are we allowed to engage a little bit, Mike, like last time?
Yeah, if Bobby wants to take a quick second, add on anything. If not, we'll turn it over to you, Donnie.
No, Greg can have all the biology questions. That's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, that's the problem is, yes, natural selection is essentially differential reproduction. You have sexual selection. We talked about in the debate, this threshold, this selective threshold where most mutations are nearly neutral. They're slightly deleterious, but they don't stop reproduction. So the problem is selection only sees the big detrimental mutation. A zebra that's born with one leg that's a little shorter than the other, he's probably going to be first for dinner. But the majority of mutations are not big. They're not highly deleterious. They're slightly deleterious. Selection can't see them. Therefore, they spread through genetic drift. They degenerate. They put shelf lives on genomes. So you're never going to take your microbes to man. You're never going to take your molecules to mammals through sexual selection, genetic drift, mutation. It's just not going to happen, guys.
Yeah, it does, because purifying selection. I mean, this is so basic, man. So again, like you're it's so
selection only acts upon the big mutations. You dodged, Greg.
No,
it's a huge advantage to be able to spread the genome around like that. That's a huge advantage.
Not if they're slightly deleterious. It's like rust on a car. Builds up.
Because the deleterious part could be turning off something and creating like a pseudogene or something like that. So we have tons of examples of that.
But pseudogenes act as RNA decoys. They help to regulate their protein coding counterparts. Pseudogenes, we now know most of them are functional DNA units.
Do you think our vitamin C in our human genome is a
no? The GULO pseudogene is most likely due to a mutational hotspot. Did you know that independently in the biological world, many creatures, they've also have a broken vitamin C synthesizing gene because of relaxed selection? A lot of creatures, including humans, take vitamin C in through their diet. And so that gene can be hit with a lot of mutations, but it's not going to stop reproduction, Dr. Greg. And therefore, we can handle a broken gene. Just a fruit bat, from my understanding, people can look into this. A fruit bat, which eats a lot of fruit, gets a lot of vitamin C. They also have, from my understanding, a broken gene, vitamin C synthesizing. It's not because, well, they're related to other creatures or humans and chimps inherited that mistake from a past. It's because they're independently breaking that gene.
Exactly. Do you think that they have the same mutations that are going to make them a pseudogene?
Well, a lot of them will be the same mutations because they're experiencing the same trauma.
No, they're not, dude.
Yeah,
no,
the same disabling mutations. Aren't you talking about the same mutations in the
premature stop codon or something is going to be there for sure, but like we share a lot of the same deleterious mutations and pseudogenes for vitamin C with other apes. I forget which ones.
It doesn't mean we inherited them though. In the same, a guinea pig. Dr. Greg, does a guinea pig also have a broken vitamin C gene?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it does. So does that mean humans and guinea pigs inherited
that was my question with their fruit bats? The same thing, exactly. So there could be other reasons that you turn off that gene.
All right,
and it doesn't have to be through common descent.
And it's not inherited.
Yes,
mutational hotspot. It doesn't have to be inherited from a common ancestor. Is the point?
Yes, my dude. Yes.
For it. No,
flying squirrels and flying snakes aren't related. Yes.
Wait. A guinea pig and a Dr. Greg, a guinea pig and a bat. That broken vitamin C synthesizing gene, was that inherited from a common ancestor, or did they experience that
I doubt
genetic
that.
defect independent? Exactly. So humans and chimps, same thing.
Yes, but they could be selected for in that same region. They could be selected for to have that deleterious pseudogene. That's the whole reason.
but it doesn't
they're
demonstrate
mammals.
ancestry.
Yes, it does because they're both mammals. Yes, it does. So why do they both have vitamin C?
Okay, guys, we're gonna
genes?
go on to the next
Because
one. I wanted to let
accumulating mutations.
y'all
Oh
riff
my
on that
God.
one for a minute since he sent 20. So thank you very much. The Cheap Chimp sent $10. He said this was a good debate. Well, thank you. Mo Christians S.A. or AA sent another 5. I just want to read this since he sent the 21st. He said, Evos, even if you are correct, it doesn't rule out creation. It explains how life changes, not how the universe came into existence. Different questions. Quick response to that, and then we'll get jumping into some of these ones up at the top here. I just wanted to hit these
So
bigger
easy.
ones real quick.
Just say that evolution is the language that God used in order to make it, and DNA is his language, or how he wrote us all. Like, that's so easy. You don't have to do this wild conspiracy stuff with flat Earth, young Earth creationism, Noah, all that nonsense.
Yeah,
Well,
you continue to say.
Let me say this, Sam, and then I
say,
just want to be real quick, and then Sam. It depends on what you mean by evolution. If by evolution you mean change over time, or changes in allele frequencies and populations over generations, and allele being a genetic variant, then yeah, we can agree that change and adaptation happens. But if by evolution, which is what Dr. Greg and Dr. Bobby believe evolution means, that they're related to grass and ladybugs, well, no, that's a different story. Sam, over to you, brother.
Yeah, I was just going to say, every time you say it's a conspiracy theory, I mean, that's just kind of a low-tier retort. I mean, I've already explained that it's competing paradigms. I give you numerous examples of competing paradigms fighting over the proper way to interpret the data. You know, you've got the eternal cosmos, and then the red shift was observed. You know, not everyone even accepts that the red shift should be interpreted as an expansion within the secular paradigm. I mean, this isn't. I mean, you do a lot of giggling, but I mean, that's not a rebuttal, right? Within every field of science, there is the fact, and then there's the interpretation of the fact, even within the secular community. So to say that is a conspiracy, I mean, that's kind of a juvenile retort. And you've got a PhD. Surely you can do better. I've explained it now multiple times.
Dr. Greg, do you believe you're related to walking sticks?
Hold on, Donnie.
Yes.
If he wanted to respond to Sam first before you ask a question, he's welcome to do that.
No, I just wanted to sneak that in.
Otherwise,
Are you flat Earth? Are you a flat earther?
No. There's nothing to fear but the sphere itself. No, we're not a flat earth.
I think, wasn't that one of the first debates that I hosted with you, Donnie?
A flat earth debate? No,
Yeah.
I've never done a flat earth debate.
I swore you were
probably
arguing
lose.
against it for once. All right. Well, anyways, we're gonna move on here
really quick. So atheism is like the new flat Earth, because all they do is deny the evidence, right?
All right.
You present evidence, they didn't present the evidence.
Sorry,
They just
Sam.
deny.
I gotta go to these
Atheism is
questions,
the new
brother.
Flat Earth, folks. Thanks
I
for showing up.
gotta hit the questions. Scientific Origins sent a ton of super chats, so I'm gonna read these.
Austin Sims, he's triggered from our last debate.
I'm gonna read these back to back.
Ooh, I bet.
You don't have to respond to all of them, but the ones that are a little bit more, poignant to the conversation, feel free. Is Mount Merca the first member of a population?
Most recent common ancestor.
Twice,
Yeah.
and then he followed it up with, is Mount Merca at a fixed point in time? Parentheses, again, no. Am I pronouncing that right, or is there a different way to say that?
Well, it's so MT would be mitochondrial, most recent common ancestor.
Oh, got it. I don't know why I was reading it as a place.
The short form. Oh, okay. So, I mean, there's so much there. Austin Sims and I literally just we did a 2 versus 2 on Raging Tomato. We did a 3.5-hour debate on this. So most recent common ancestor in terms of mitochondrial Eve actually would be the first woman. It doesn't have to be the most recent common ancestor. It doesn't have to be the first person. But in this case, the DNA diversity, which is low, the mutation rates are fast. And according to the evolutionary model, this was post hoc retrofitting, okay? So they didn't predict that all mitochondrial DNA worldwide can be traced back to a single woman. All Y-chromosomal DNA can be traced back to a single man. They didn't predict that. But biblical expectations are what? The Bible says God created 2 people, Adam and Eve. Jesus said from the beginning of creation, he made them male and female. Fits nicely. But the evolutionary model, they have in their story this long out of Africa model where populations exist in thousands, but there's not random mating because they exist in local tribes, different people groups, separated. So if evolution were true, in reality, especially when you bring in Neanderthal DNA and Denisovan DNA, you should expect multiple mitochondrial DNA lines, multiple Y chromosomal lines, and yet we find one mitochondrial line and one Y chromosomal line. So yes, in this case, most recent common ancestor for mitochondrial DNA is Eve, the biblical Eve.
Wait, how related do you think humans are to each other? Like,
all related.
no, but I mean on a species level. Like, how far in the past do we have to go before everyone alive today is related to everyone on Earth X number of years ago?
Well, I showed that. I answered that in the phylogenetic tree of mitochondrial DNA derived from the 1,000 Genomes Project.
But
all
from the
mitochondrial
secular
DNA,
scientists, from the secular scientists,
200,000 years ago.
No, it's like, no, on a species level, our species moves together. We intermix all over the place, right?
And your most recent common ancestor is
literally like
15.
Yeah, common ancestor. That's a different question than how long in the past do you have to go before all the humans are related to all the humans today, right?
Right.
So the lineages that didn't die off, right? And it's about 1,500 to 2,000 years ago. That's approximately the time frame it takes for all humans to intermix with each other.
We're looking at the bigger picture, though, like Parsons and how.
There's literally a paper by mathematicians. It's called every kid or every child is a.
You're missing the point, though. What we're taking worldwide mitochondria.
Every baby's a royal baby. It's a number file video. They literally go over this. They even take into account like migration patterns and such, right?
It doesn't work.
This is very well known because that's in general how it works. Species move.
It doesn't work though.
As a whole, yes, they do.
It doesn't work for you though.
The lineages that don't stay within the species,
a basic
they die
question,
off.
Okay,
They
Dr.
die
Bobby.
off.
So how do you explain low diversity, average 20 to 30 differences separating people from the Eve consensus sequence and a fast mutation rate? How do you account for that?
So when I briefly looked at the paper, again, I'm not a biologist, but my understanding is that the Eve that you're talking about is being presented in a hypothetical fashion as the woman that we all got this particular mutation from.
Bobby,
so how do you explain why there's such low diversity?
It's not an indication that there was one woman on the planet.
Okay,
I
get that.
Okay, hold on.
No one ever said that.
All right. Apologies, I had to mute both of you real quick because Scientific Origin sent 3 other super chats that are all kind of intermingled with this specific topic, and I want to just read these out. That way you don't talk about them before I can read them, and then it's just kind of going in circles. But if you already did cover some of these points, point it out. Scientific Origin said mitochondrial mutation rate is greater than the substitution rate. Followed up by SFT, why do you cherry pick studies that prove you wrong? Followed by show us your numbers / calculations for MTMRCA. And then last one I'll read real quick. Or last 2 I'll read because he sent a bunch. Yeah, he did send a bunch. Does mtDNA experience strong purifying selection? And no papers SFT cites actually supports his claims. So got those.
Well, Austin's pretty triggered by our last. So there's a lot there, Mike. I should put a timer. How long do I have? 2 minutes?
Let's see. That was 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. He sent about $20 to $30 worth of super chats. I haven't read all of them yet, but I'm gonna mix in some other ones here after this batch, to be efficient with getting other people's comments. But
take about an hour, Donnie. Take about an hour.
No, I'm gonna put a solid 2 minutes on the clock here to answer these 3 $2 ones, and you could start with the mitochondrial mutation rate is greater than the substitution rate, and why do you cherry pick studies? Show us your numbers. Those are the first 3.
Yeah, but very simply, in my opening statement, I assumed our interlocutors would be prepared, and they weren't. And I don't mean that in a mean way. They just weren't. And so I showed, in case they invoked selection to slow down the mutation rate in mitochondrial DNA, I showed the graph where Dr. Rob Carter has already looked at that. And I also showed a paper, Howell, where he pointed out that there's in-house debate, even in the conventional literature, where many secular scientists would argue that no, selection doesn't necessarily work to slow down the rate enough to go from 6,500 years to 200,000 years. So yes, mitochondrial DNA being haploid, non-recombining, when you graph it out, when you quantify the data, the rate slowdowns just a little bit. And so your observed neutral rate still approximates the fixation rate, the long-term substitution rate, which is basic population genetics. And so we can do the math. It's been done. Dr. Nathaniel Jensen did the math on the whole mitochondrial genome. He has, based on a Ding et al. Paper, he did a lot of work. He was diligent. The rate, if I remember correctly, whole mitochondrial genome is roughly 0.1, I think it is, every generation.
45 seconds left.
One every 10 generations. And so if you do the math, average differences 20 to 30, max differences 120. Also account for the fact that from the flood to Babel, you'd have women and people in general living hundreds of years, passing on more mutations, and the math fits perfectly. We don't find hundreds of thousands of years in the mitochondrial chromosome. We only find a few thousand. There you go.
Okay, Dr. Greg, if you want to take a quick sec to respond to that as well. Austin did say that there are questions for the whole panel.
Yeah, I mean, again, no evidence that humans can live this long. Like, they just presuppose that, like, oh yeah, of course, Adam and Eve lived until 900 years old. Noah did too. He was 800 years old. Like, no evidence for any of this stuff. Like, it's just wild how they cherry pick data to push conspiracies, meanwhile showing no affirmative data or any type of studies or experiments on their own. I mean, all it is are these weird, like the weird mutation rates that are conflating, somatic versus germline and all these different, the conserved versus hypervariable regions of the genomes of the mitochondria. I mean, why? You have to think about that. Why? And why hasn't he actually done any research to show this through peer-reviewed journals and stuff? I mean, I think that it's pretty obvious why.
Okay, we're gonna move on here. Donnie, don't jump in, please.
I'm not done either.
Oh, sorry, I thought Donnie was talking. Sam,
I just wanted to say one thing.
Yeah, just real quick.
One sec. Go.
So yeah, I mean that. Unfortunately, Dr. Greg, like you just need to get outside of your echo chamber. The secular community right now has paper. You can just type it up in your computer. Somebody today will live to be 1,000. There's TED Talks on it. And what they're doing is they're fixing mutated genes that are related to longevity. And this is the secular community. This has people who have nothing to do with this debate. And so what's the age? Another coincidence, right? All these coincidences that line up with the biblical narrative. What's the age they pick? 1,000. And so, yeah, the human genome, if you correct all of these broken areas that are related to longevity, and of course the environment's going to have some factor in there. But yeah, you can add multiple years, many years to one's life. So, I mean, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Dude, that was David R. Liu's gene editing tools that he used through directed evolution, and he created through evolution, by the way. Go ahead, Dr. Bobby.
All right, Dr. Bobby's response, and then we're going to move on here.
Just real quick. Again, I'm trying to reemphasize this point. I posted in the chat the number file video that everyone could go watch, right? That goes over specifically the relationship that human beings have to our ancestors. In particular, I want to point out, and I think this has been deceptively presented over and over again, no reputable scientist has said that there's a single woman named Eve. They've all said we're all related to possibly a single woman. No one has said the entire population went down to one woman. That's not true. There were women that, as far as we know, there were plenty of women. There were thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. At no point did we go down to a single person. That's absolutely not true. No one has said that or proven that, and certainly the data doesn't support that, right?
I should get the last words into it for us, right?
Because that would be a bottleneck, and we don't have any proof of that. Exactly right.
Yes. No rules exactly. No rules exactly on the open on the questions here from the audience. It's just a matter of time, and I need to make sure I get through all these.
20 seconds, just to be fair, because because there was a lot thrown at me there. So I'll say, well,
there's going to be a lot more. So that's why I want to get through the questions.
Literally 20 seconds. 20 seconds. Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. I presented a challenge. If the evolutionary model is true, you'd expect multiple mitochondrial DNA lineages based on the out of Africa story. So these guys are just simply not really addressing anything. So go ahead.
Okay.
But math.
I don't scientific origins. I don't have the,
I presented math. I presented actual math.
It didn't show that
doesn't comport with reality, though, does it?
I know. I understand how clusters work. Huh?
Right. All right.
It doesn't comport with reality.
You were related to a chimp because of math?
Next
Yeah.
one
Yes,
is from
that's what the
The math
taxonomical line
refutes
show.
you. 70% difference in Y chromosomes. I'm sorry,
Oh
Mike.
my
Go.
god.
Oh my god.
I don't like you using the mute button, but I got to, Donnie. I'm sorry. Ducks Y for 5 says, was that condescending opening statement hard to write? Let me see if he said a name at the end of that one. He said, why is the answer yes? I don't know who he's talking to about. That was sent in a long time ago. But that was from Ducks Y. Thank you. One more I'll just get through real quick is Creationist Crybaby 999 for 5 says Sam/SFT. Evolution relies upon well-defined processes such as mutation and natural selection. Describe your proposed designer and his design process.
Yeah, no problem. That was for me, right? So
Yeah,
we
either.
call that, as Donnie said, the created heterozygosity hypothesis. And regarding the designer, so I made an argument in my opening that God is necessary for intelligibility, for math, which I'm so disappointed that our PhD mathematician didn't engage with. Unity
I
and
will
diversity
engage with you.
for that which dictates anything that's possible or impossible. So you gotta bring something more to the table than, as Donnie says, ducking, dipping, diving, dodging. I don't know what to say. Yeah, I mean,
All right, quick response from the other two.
I will happily debate you on logic, Sam. I would love to. I don't know why you're expecting 10-second rebuttals to like how logic works in the middle of a evolution discussion, but I mean,
it doesn't say evolution. The topic was not evolution. The talk was Adam and Eve versus evolution. I gave a positive
okay,
argument in my opening. I made it
high
part of the
dimensional
debate.
information
Just
clustering and
dodging, ducking,
pathing.
dipping.
Like what would it like?
Did I make it part of the debate? Did I make it
What?
part of the debate?
At the beginning?
Yeah. Was
You
it part of
presented
my
a large
opening?
number of philosophy topics, and again, I would have been happy to
Did I
diverge
make
the
it part of the debate?
conversation. I would have been happy to diverge the conversation.
Did I make it part of the debate? And did you guys engage
So
with it?
the answer is no.
Very good.
Yes,
Thank you.
correct.
Thank
Yes,
you.
the debate
Thank
was
you for the
not
honesty.
philosophical. I asked you what
Let's do it.
decidability is. You didn't know.
No, I
Can you
made
even
it
state?
philosophical
Can you
in my
even
opening.
state? Can you even state Gödel's incompleteness theorem?
Yeah,
Can you tell me the
I think
difference
that
between
Gödel's
first order
incompleteness-
logic and zeroth order
Gödel's
logic?
incompleteness theorem is that something can't be proven according to math. The problem that you're going to have,
False.
though, is
False. It's only true in first order logic, and it's only true
Right.
about arithmetic. It's not
Well,
true
so-
about every system.
okay.
There's
So
plenty
does
of first order
logic,
systems
All right, Bobby.
that
does
are
logic have
consistent and complete.
preconditions? Dr. Bobby, does logic
So
have
you do not know
preconditions?
Gödel's incompleteness theorem. I got you.
That's fine. Does logic have
Yeah.
preconditions?
No, we make it up. It's in a book.
Logic doesn't have preconditions.
No, I could literally pull out a book for you. It says
So, like the basic laws
definition
of logic, when you want to say
what's
that
the
they can
definition of
work, right?
true? You
Our
tell me what's the
mathematical
definition
model-
of true.
Our
What's the definition
mathematical
of true?
model built
You know what?
on
I'll just
logic-
tell you. True is an axiom that we've declared to be true or a derivation of axioms. That's
It's
the
not true
definition.
necessarily,
That's what
though.
true means.
This is a blunder.
That's
No,
what
it's
true
not.
means in a
There
logic
are
system. It's
multiple-
made
right.
up. We made
There are
up the
multiple
definition of
definitions
true.
of truth.
It's made up.
There's coherence
So,
theory. There's
here's
some
the
like
thing.
guess
Here's the thing.
explanation
And
theory. There's truth is that which.
All right, guys, I had to stop that. We're circling a drain here. It doesn't feel like we're getting to the point where we can hit that cleanly at an endpoint. So sorry. Tengu VPR since 5 and says, I'm just here to support Big Mike and eat some popcorn. It's been a popcorn debate. Thank you. We got one from Mentally Chill for 5. SFT, how does a disembodied... Wait, where is he? Where'd he go? Donnie!
And he ran
He's
from the
a
debate, you
washroom.
guys.
Wow.
I'll be right
That's going to get clipped.
back.
Genetic entropy got him. That was the.
he got raptured because that's what happens.
Okay, we'll skip that one for now and we'll come back to it here in a second. There's a ton from Scientific Origins we haven't got to. We'll get there, Austin. Don't worry. Dang, that one's to SFT as well. Okay, here we go. Kevin Blackwell Welder, good to see you in the super chats again. $5. He says, for Evo side, can you name a single mutation that has been observed to have gone from sub 10% fixation to more than 90% fixation across an entire species?
From memory, no. I mean, but there are examples of, like lizards and stuff that are going into caves that basically they had functioning eyes, and then the eyes become a source of infection, so they accumulate deleterious mutations to create eyes, and then they basically evolve not to have eyes anymore because the ones that don't have eyes are more fit.
So loss of eyes, therefore evolution.
Yeah, that's how evolution works sometimes.
Isn't
Yeah.
that going the wrong way though?
We're going to
No.
circle back.
That's not going to take fish to
eyes?
fishermen.
Like
That's
we have
not.
fish eyes, and then we developed like a membrane to hold.
Well, that's
our
your
eye,
evolutionary
and then we
philosophy.
developed
That's not
another
science.
lens to fix the fish eye in the back. So we
Yeah,
like,
that's
we
your
have-
evolutionary philosophy. You've been sold a lie, Bobby. I'd go get your money back.
No,
from
we
that.
we see it in
No,
transition.
seriously,
we literally
you've been
see
fooled
it
into it. You should get
things
your money back.
today.
Whoever taught you. If
not-
Dr. Greg taught you that, I'd get
Not
your
the
money
unk
back.
alerts. Guys, don't just take up my whole screen when you do that. Okay, this was for SFT when you were in the bathroom. He says, how does a disembodied mind make anything from nothing?
How does a disembodied mind make everything from nothing?
Anything was the word.
Well, if you're starting from the scripture, the first cause, Sam, why don't we hand that to you? This is more your expertise.
Yeah, no problem.
That's
Yeah,
the
the
part.
Bible says that God spoke everything into existence. And so you could say, well, I don't really know how that works. I mean, even within quantum physics, I'm sure as Bobby would like to say, there's some hypothesis that would say that the collapse of the wave needs an observer. And so if that's the case, then everything that exists, you're going to have a problem because you would need an outside observer.
What's
There's
an observer?
arguments for the first, I'll be done in a second. There's arguments for, for example, if you reject that something is metaphysically first, then how do you get something that's metaphysically second? If everything within your system is contingent states of affairs, then what is it that's non-contingent that provides for all states of contingency? Maybe Bobby can answer those.
Yeah. Well, what's an observer?
Well, I mean, you tell me, bud. It's not a
No,
question.
in physics. I'm asking you, what's an observer in physics?
Well,
When they do
you
an
have to
experiment,
answer
what's an
my
observer?
question. The bottom line is, if you
So,
tell me what's an observer.
Here, let me put it to you this way. Let me put it to you this way.
Without an observer,
Is a piece of plastic like literally a polarized film? Is that an observer?
If you have a state of
Yes.
affairs where everything is in a
Yes.
wave, right? Think this through. Do you have a piece
Yes.
of plastic? If everything
piece
that
of plastic.
exists is
Yes.
listen, Bobby, you got to
Mhm.
behave. If everything that exists, everything, the
hilarious.
entirety of everything that exists is in the form of a wave, is there something exterior to that as an observer, be it a piece of plastic or the booger in your nose? I don't know. You tell me. If everything that exists is in the form of a wave, what's the observer?
The dishonest position here is that you are trying to conflate the word observer, as is used anecdotally, to talk about people observing things.
grant you
And in
your
physics,
booger
that is
or a
not the
piece of
case.
plastic. It's not
Observer
an
is simply any type of instrumentation, whether or not there's a person there or anyone
Right.
is available to even read the data, or the data gets destroyed before we can even read it, right? Like
I'll ask
none
again,
of that is
Bobby.
even remotely related to
Bobby,
the
I'll ask
thing,
again.
which
If
is
everything that
again, the
exists
observer
is in
can
the
be a
form of a
piece
wave,
plastic.
what is the observer? That's what I asked you. What is it? If everything
The observer
that
is
exists,
any measurement.
if
any
everything-
measurement.
Bobby,
Any measurement.
Bobby, try to focus. Lock in, buddy. Lock
Yes.
in. If
Measurement.
everything that exists,
Measurement.
every single thing, measurement,
Yes.
that's just an abstraction. If everything that exists is in the form of a wave,
Okay.
is
piece of
there an
plastic.
observer? Yes or no?
Yeah. Plastic.
What is it? Plastic would be part within the set of everything that exists
Yeah.
in a wave.
We only know of what exists in the real world. What
Bobby,
are you
this
talking
is basic
about?
stuff here. Bobby, listen.
So plastic.
Within the set of
Plastic is an
everything that
observer,
exists,
or an example of an observer, I should
Is
say.
plastic in the set of everything that exists?
Yes, it is.
Okay, if
Yes.
everything
And that's
that
all we
exists-
know of until you prove otherwise.
All right, we sorry, Sam.
Just
We
go
got to get
back.
to the next questions here. DuxY sent 5 and then another 2 to say, why didn't Donnie discuss the sweeping conclusions in the context of a limited study? He's hiding. That's why. Parentheses, and he knows better. And then ended it with, Donny/Sam, explain where trads XX come from.
So, okay, so it's directed at me. Can you?
Is it
I have
Donny
an
or
answer for
Sam
him.
at the?
Yeah, well, I want to make sure that I'm addressing his question correctly. Can you read his first part to me?
First one seems a little rhetorical. Why didn't Donny discuss the sweeping conclusions in the context of a limited studies? Well, he said limited studies, but I'm pretty sure he meant
Right.
context
Okay.
of a limited
And that's
study.
what I thought. Yeah, and that's what I thought. So in my opening statement, which was completely done, but that's okay. It's a great time to be a biblical creationist. We have the data. Genetics is the best way to answer this question of ancestry. We've got the mutation rate data. We got the genome-wide functionality data, which overturns their best arguments for human evolution, like ERVs and pseudogenes. And I show directly from these papers why their conclusions and inferences, for example, on my screen, I won't share it though, Madrigal et al. In 2012. They said, we argue that until the cause of these discrepancies between the pedigree observed rates, which are fast, and the phylogenetic long-term substitution rates, which are slow, they say it will be fully understood. Both estimates, both lower estimates and higher direct estimates, such as those obtained in the study, should be considered. So no, there's a lot of in-house debate, and you can see that in these papers, but they've not come to a solid conclusion as to why the rates are so fast, why the DNA diversity is so low. How do we slow down the rate? And every time that they attempt, you can look at these papers like Tristan da Cunha, which looks at the Tristan da Cunha island, Soares et al. You can see the Canary Islands there. King et al. Is another study. None of these work to answer the discrepancy. But as creationists, we can sit back and say, yeah, DNA diversity is low, mutation rates are fast. This is biblical time. It contradicts the human evolutionary model.
But Donnie, they said that there's no disagreement on anything.
Right. We're cherry picking.
Yeah, there's no
It's a
disagreement
slogan.
anywhere.
It's a
All right,
slogan.
short
I
response.
think Dr. Greg should get a shirt
All right.
that says you just
Everything's
cherry pick.
intuitive knowledge. Apparently.
Short response from Greg or Bobby here, and then we'll move on to the next one.
So
Tell me I cherry picked, Greg. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're just conflating like mutation and substitution rates again. I mean, it's just the same thing over and over again, dude. It's
Do you
crazy.
disagree
Go
with
ahead, Dr.
Fatuma
Bobby.
when he says
Go
the
ahead.
observed rate, the neutral rate
No.
approximates the fixation rate? Yes or no?
I haven't read that paper. I don't know what you're talking
That's
about.
basic population genetics.
I don't know what I haven't read that paper
Basic
to talk what you're talking about.
population.
Neutral
Why did
rate
you answer?
approximates the fixation
Cherry
rate.
pick paper. Yeah.
It's
gotcha.
not cherry.
I don't
This
know
is
what you're-
any
I don't-
basic population genetics
All right,
textbook.
all right, Donnie.
Neutral rate approximates fixation rate.
This is a moment for them to respond, not for you to ask questions.
Look it up. Ask AI, Dr. Greg, right now. Ask ChatGPT.
So again, like 99.9% of the biologists and microbiologists
such a
and
strong
people in medicine
population.
and everywhere else, they do not they do not agree with whatever positions you guys are taking in terms of demonstrating that human beings are only 6,000 years old, right? Like this is not held by anyone, including the people in the papers that you're citing, right? They're not saying that there's
Not
one
right.
Eve, right? No, you're wrong. You're just lying about what they said. No one said there's a single woman that we all came from. This is just flat out lie, right? Like the point is no model's been presented tonight. Zero models been presented for our kinds. Zero, right? There's no demonstration that this is even possible. And more importantly, I literally presented mathematical modeling that shows that this can't possibly be. There's just no way. Tell me the variance and dimension I should.
All right, real quick.
Like,
Hey, Mike,
you could
since it's
wrap.
directed at me. Can I
I
get
know.
the last word?
Yeah.
No, we
It'll be
gotta
real
move
quick.
on. Sorry,
It'll be real
buddy.
quick.
I
Last
think
word.
everything that you're probably about to say is going to be related to these next couple questions
Fair.
from scientific
Fair.
origin. So I'm just going to read these real quick and then figure out a way to weave it together. Scientific origin says, does mtDNA experience strong purifying selection? And no papers SFT cites actually support his claims.
Okay, so a few things. Dr. Bobby, he loves to say right after everything that he says that's wrong. So no, every time he says right, just replace it, substitution mutation.
Take my
It's actually
class.
wrong, completely wrong, okay? I challenged them
Right.
early in the discussion to point out one of the authors of the papers that I cited from the conventional literature, Dr. Rob Carter, PhD, marine biologist, geneticist, he's done a ton of work. He's a young earth creationist. One of the papers I cited was written by him. So no, it's just wrong to say that no geneticist or no biologist agrees that mitochondrial Eve is the biblical Eve, okay? I already addressed the purifying selection argument many times. I showed the graph from Dr. Rob Carter showing that, yeah, selection works a little bit Okay. And Dr. Greg earlier was saying, oh, somatic cell mutations and germ cell No, these studies like Parsons and Howell et al. And Arnadottir, they know that they can tell what's somatic. They can tell what's germline. I mean, if you get a somatic cell mutation, like a skin cell, that'd be a somatic cell mutation. That's not going to be just fixed and inherited in every single cell. Okay. But an inherited mutation, you can generally tell based on high frequency, okay, this is an inherited mutation. We can, and even if you go with a conservative number, whether it's a D loop or whole mitochondrial chromosome, you still get an Eve that's just thousands. You never get an Eve that's hundreds of thousands of years. So yeah, his assertion, oh, purifying, yeah, it works a little bit, but it does almost nothing to change the observed neutral rate from the long-term substitution rate.
Okay. Guys, if you don't mind, there's just a couple more that are all thrown in together, and I'd really like to get through these so they're not just one scientific origin after another, and we just answer them all as best you can. But first, we got Creationist Crybaby 999 for 5 says, for Lucy, the ratio of humerus to femur is 84.6, which compares to 71.8% for modern humans and 97.8% for chimps. Explain using your creation model.
Yeah, that's why I pointed out it's the differences that make all the difference. I have an entire presentation for sake of time. I won't go through. I showed some images on the screen. The fossil data just went completely unaddressed, and that's okay. We're largely focusing on biology and genetics, but we're showing that the lower quality science, like fossil data, actually matches the higher quality science, like genetics. So yeah, differences make all the difference. So there are some similarities. Take the pelvis of chimps, humans, and the Australopithecines like Lucy, Australopithecus afarensis. And there's discontinuities, like the ischium part of the pelvis, for example. If I remember correctly at the top of my head, it's short in humans, short in ancient humans like Neanderthals, Floresiensis, that's Hobbit, there's some debate there. But it's long for climbing adaptations in extant apes, and it's also longer in Australopithecines like Lucy. So there's a discontinuity. That's why you can read in their papers,
right.
They'll say that Lucy,
here's a last try to get there.
Okay. So Lucy walked upright, but in a clumsy, bent hip, bent knee type way. Then you have the hyoid. So to answer his question, our creation model focuses on what, Mike? Big Mike? The discontinuities, and those are what continue to be dodged.
Okay. Greg and Bobby, go ahead, give a quick response to that. Try not to end it on a question if you could.
Is this our final closing or something?
No, I'm just trying to get through these comments so that we don't spend another hour.
It'll be done.
I don't know. It's additional straw manning and pulling out quotes and not looking at any papers and
the evolutionist soundboard.
Here's the thing.
Slogans at this point.
Donnie,
this is so bad for you, Doctor.
Slogans.
I know. You're losing so bad.
Let him just say his piece real quick, and if you want to wrap something,
understand you don't know any of the math.
Something in your next response. There's more comments aimed at you guys, so just sit tight.
So I just wanted to reiterate one thing, right? Again, Dr. Greg and I would be happy to completely overturn the theory of evolution. We'd be happy to take that position. We need evidence. We need peer-reviewed literature. We need decades of demonstration of a new model that works. We need an actual model for kinds, right? What we don't want is that the math doesn't even work. I can make an Excel spreadsheet and I can't even get clusters to do what you're saying. Like this is not what we don't want that, right? We want to be able to actually understand the model, right?
So really quick. So are you familiar with the plum pudding model?
The plum pudding model? No, never.
Saturation model? It's an atomic model.
All right, well, let's focus on answering.
I'm almost done.
Sam, we got to focus on answering the questions from the audience. This isn't a Q&A for you, unfortunately, Sam. Sorry, Bo.
Do you know what 1-point compactification is?
All right, okay, Bobby.
The point here is that there are numerous mathematical models historically that have been false. So just pointing to some mathematical model and say whoop-de-doo doesn't mean that it comports with reality. That's been my argument with you the whole time, even though you can't ground math.
All right. We gotta move on there. We really gotta cool it on the asking each other questions instead of just strictly responding to the super chats. That wastes a lot of time. I know it's a lead into your point, but you could just go straight to the point. Would be the easiest and painless way to go about this process. Okay, because there is quite a bit more that I want to blast through. Guys, if you send like $32 super chats, next time I'm not going to read all of them. Just try to be more succinct because it gets a little confusing too. All right, so next one is from Scientific Origins again. We got, is mtDNA non-recombining? Yes, equals slower substitutions. And then SFT, why don't you account for cavemen / Denisovians or Denisovans? And then he's got two more, but I want you to quick response, pithy, as James likes to say, to those two.
I mean, those are some pretty big questions. I'll put a timer. So
I mean, is mtDNA non-recombining? I would say that's a yes or no question. And then
it's non, but his point about, so, okay, I'll answer quickly then for 30 seconds to a minute. Mitochondrial DNA is haploid. It's non-recombining. We have autosomal nuclear DNA, right? Because we're diploid. So we have 2 chromosome 1s, 2 chromosome 2s, but we do have uniparentally inherited DNA. So Y chromosome, mitochondrial DNA. It's haploid, non-recombining, but no, that doesn't mean that the substitution rate slows down a ton. I already showed for the 10th time in the graph that Dr. Rob Carter already considered this. And you can see that selection works a little bit. And even with some beneficial mutations going down horizontally, it doesn't substantially change the neutral rate by the substitution rate. And another reason is because in your out of Africa model, the evolutionist model, again, you have thousands and thousands of years where populations are smaller, isolated, broken up into tribes. And so you're going to have, during that time period, faster rates of fixation. So it all balances out in the end, gentlemen.
Okay,
and then
so
Neanderthals was the next one.
Oh my God, stream's evolving again. So yeah, that second question was SFT. Why don't you account for cavemen's Denisovans?
Yes, I did, and I did in my debate with Austin Sims. Okay, Austin Science Denying Sims. In my opening statement here, I showed the papers with hypermutation in real families, 7-fold more mutations in a single generation. Neanderthals, we understand, were in smaller populations, highly inbred. They had a high genetic load. I could show you that in papers, okay? If the creation model, assuming the creation model is true, they would have branched off either right before Babel or after Babel. And so if they're living in caves or nearby uranium rocks, because the flood would have some heat, energy, and radiation produced, that would speed up their mutation rates. I think their differences are like maybe 170 to 180. So still very easy to account for with some hypermutation, faster rates of fixation. And I've shown that that is a valid extrapolation because we have papers today where hypermutation is a reality.
Okay, 2 back-to-back from Scientific and then Sydney Raptor. These are both just kind of similar questions, so you can just answer them back-to-back. You don't have to give long explanations or anything for these. He says, Austin says, why do you always dodge debates with Dr. Dan? And then Sydney says, why are you always ducking a debate with Dapper?
Okay, firstly, I debated Dr. Dan Stern-Cardinal formally going back like 5 years ago on Neanderthal. So how can I dodge them?
And then Dapper?
Second, well, I want to say this. We've done open mic debate challenges 2 in the last month. Dan was invited, could have joined. And on our Raging Tomato debate, there was an hour open mic. He could have, no one's running, okay? Dapper Dino, he thinks he's intimidating. I don't really want to debate someone I just don't like. So that's why I don't debate Dapper Dino.
All right.
Yeah, Dr. Dan, we've already debated in the past. We'll debate again in the future.
I imagine if you took a little more time to be a little more cordial in your discussion with other people, then they might.
This is me being cordial, Bobby. So you don't want to see me being aggressive.
You literally insulted me in the very first moment you could, and you've literally interjected.
I said you dodged. That's not an insult, Bobby.
You dodged 15 of my questions. I wrote them down.
No, you dodged every single one of our arguments.
What LDA is, dodge, SE, dodge, standard deviation.
None of that
dodge,
shows.
Test statistic, dodge.
All
alpha.
of that is statistical.
What's the alpha level? Dodge, confidence
all
level,
of those
dodge.
has to do
Tell me
with
about high dimensional sparsity, dodge.
I understand. Right?
All of that
we have
has 1 point compactification.
Statistic
variability. About that.
Bobby.
All of those are
You're
statistical
gonna be all
terms. I
right,
already
Bobby.
pointed out, Bobby, I know you're excited. I already pointed out that you
Really?
can
TCA is a
statistically arrange
statistical
organ.
term?
You're excited.
Interesting.
You're being demolished. Let me
Last
finish
I
my
checked,
sentence.
that was a machine
I
learning
pointed
term.
out in my
Oh, no.
rebuttal that you
Oh,
dodged the
gosh.
topic.
I don't know
You
my
can
I don't know my fields
statistically,
anymore.
the beginnings of your sentences are starting in the middle of mine. You can statistically arrange organisms into morphological or taxonomic hierarchies, but classification itself is not genealogy. The critical question here
What
today
is
are chimps and
extracted from
humans are.
those?
Dude, I'm trying to finish my thoughts. None of your
Having
arguments here today
paths are
demonstrate that humans
extracted.
and chimps are related, and you dodged our fossil and genetic level discontinuities.
Paths
You
are
did no
extracted,
favors
though.
for your
If
burden
they
of
weren't
proof.
related, you wouldn't get paths.
Yes, but you're making false assumptions on what the creation model predicts in terms of overlap and hierarchy. If God
I
created
introduced two
hierarchy,
Okay.
variables, dimension
All
and
right. All
variables.
right. All right, guys. We got one for the other side here. We're gonna move on. I'm not gonna let it devolve into a back and forth on this front too long. This one just came in from Vex for 10. For the evolutionists, what came first, the chicken or the egg, or dinosaur or the egg?
I thought that there were eggs before chickens, like different types of eggs before chickens. So I think that's the idea. And this, oh my gosh, this Dan Carter guy, a Robin Carter guy, is so funny. I saw one of his videos. He made the argument that the Noah's Ark had like little mini organisms on there, like little mini animals. That's how he like gets all the space stuff.
Like Spy Kids 2?
well, why
Yeah,
wouldn't you
like-
have babies or teen animals? I mean, isn't the whole point of reproduction? You're going to bring older animals ready to die?
So
Makes sense.
funny,
Or
dude.
smaller-
Wait, but
No, what's
dinosaurs come
funny,
from
Dr. Greg, is
lizards.
you believe you're
Dr.
related to
Greg,
grass, and
dinosaurs
that's
come from
science.
lizards. It's lizards, right? Lizards turned into T-Rexes. That's where they
Are
came
you
from.
related to a lizard, Bobby?
Yes, of course. Everything on Earth is related.
Yeah,
right?
that's your philosophy. That's your evolutionary
we
philosophy.
literally have data point after data point after. Why is everything the same? Like chirality, right? Like, oh, what that just magically happened?
No.
Like what? If you
On
were
your
a deity,
world,
we live on the
would
same
you mix
planet,
it up a little
same
bit?
environment,
You'd be like,
your
chirality
system,
over
DNA,
here,
RNA,
little
proteins.
chirality over there. But no, you just decided, you know what? I'm going to make everything look like it's related.
All right, this one's
doesn't look like it's related.
for
'Cause it
axiomatic.
is related.
Just your assertion.
You mean designed, right? You mean designed.
No,
Bobby, this
Ones and
one's
zeros?
Bobby, this one's for you. It says AR. This is from Scientific again, Austin. AR, you think Donnie understood your opening at all?
no, clearly not.
Or he followed it up?
Seems to.
Go ahead,
He
sorry.
seems to make the mistake repeatedly, right? That like when you reduce data down to like 2 dimensions, that some like he's making like false statements about what that means. Like there's issues when you reduce data down to 2 dimensions like that, and those are things you have to be aware of. That's why I showed a graph where I showed clusters, and then I pointed out that they're 99% sparse between each other. Right, I calculated it out in the high.
You'd
dimensional
expect that
space,
if God created
right?
hierarchically. It's the discontinuities you need to
No,
address,
but your
Bobby.
brain would say those look close to each other.
Yeah,
That's what
because
you would have said.
that's why genetics is the best. So here's the
Right?
thing. Even today, within
Yeah,
the same
I know.
species, oftentimes you find
I
more
understand.
variation than across species. Okay,
Yeah.
when it comes to morphology, when it comes to anatomy
know.
and fossil data, it's more difficult. But that's why I showed work from Dr. Todd Wood, creationist baraminologists, where they show the same thing, clustering, and actually focused on the topic. Are you okay? Are you okay? Do you need help or something?
No,
I can hear
I'm
you,
just
like,
wondering when you're going to answer the question.
you're
about
excited. Well,
clusters,
I am
that's all.
answering it. Okay. You have false assumptions when the real empirical data contradicts your statistical analyses. It does nothing to show that you're related to a chimp. I already showed the
D
clustering.
or the V. I only introduced 2 variables, D or V.
It does nothing to
Which one
show
was
that you're
wrong?
related to a chimp. Okay,
The
Bobby?
D or the V?
Oh my god.
I put
All
them in
right,
a
so
table.
Sydney
D or V.
Raptor sent too and said, Donnie, why don't you actually connect DNA to Adam and Eve?
Why don't I connect DNA to Adam and Eve? That's exactly what we did.
Okay, well they can go back and look at that. Austin sent 5 back to back, so I'm gonna read these real quick, and then I think we're getting close to the bottom here, so let's just hammer through these as short of a response as you can muster here. Why difference was a big surprise. That is a quote. Not only was this not surprising to evolutionary biologists, it's mathematically necessary. Entire genome, arrow, a MRCA.
No.
And SFT, if your incorrect methodology and apply it to the rest of the genome, you get times way outside the YEC timeline, over 10,000 times 6,000 years old. Wrecked. Okay, go ahead, respond.
That's because that's a straw man. Creatious, we explain the vast majority of autosomal nuclear DNA differences. I talked about this in my rebuttal. The created heterozygosity model, which was never addressed. We predict genome-wide functionality. That's what we've shown makes genetic entropy even more of a problem, okay? So created heterozygosity means the majority of DNA differences in autosomal nuclear DNA is created. So yeah, you can't get a time to most recent common ancestor there. But we agree with the evolutionists that DNA differences in your uniparentally inherited DNA compartments like mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome, those are due to mutations. So we have a direct head-to-head test, and that's why we look to your observed mutation rates in these DNA compartments, DNA diversity, and we show, wow, this DNA diversity from an Eve consensus sequence or from a Y chromosome Noah, we can explain this in 4,500 years. The last thing I'll say, any evolutionist, show me where you predicted. They keep saying, oh, it was expected. Okay, show me where you predicted before finding it a single mitochondrial DNA ancestor and a single Y chromosomal ancestor, because, and here's the punchline, Mike, and I'm done. The out of Africa model, the way the demographic population structure is, how people existed in Neanderthal, Denisovan DNA, we should find multiple mitochondrial lineages. We should find more diversity, but we don't.
Real quick, Life in HD in the comments here, he found a very unique way to connect Adam and Eve in DNA. So DNA is just and backwards. So it's Adam, DNA backwards, Eve. That was genius, bro. In the comments. Genius. He deserves
the
a shout out.
That they've given all debate. There it is.
Yeah, thank you.
I like that rhetoric, Dr. Garcia. I like good rhetoric. I'm
being honest, you know.
He's a good sport.
All right. Orthodox Phronesis for 5 says, I'm convinced Canada is a giant testing ground for the elite to do social engineering based on Dr. Greg's education. Dr. Greg, rebuttal?
Oh no, they found my real identity and I'm Canadian. Oh man.
I'm Canadian too. You're probably proud to be in the same country as me, right, Dr. Greg?
Oh no, I completely lied just then.
Oh no. We're gonna have to do an in-person debate then. There's a couple Canadians coming together, different worldviews, different beliefs.
We'll have to see how good your slap shot is.
Oh yeah, there you go. I'm more of a baseball player, but I'll do some hockey.
Oh jeez.
I used to work at a hockey store growing up, so
sharpen some skates.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I wish it snowed more in Texas, but I like that it doesn't too. Mentally Chill for 5 says, I noticed neither SFT or Sam didn't answer my question. How does something come from nothing? If God is made of nothing and created from nothing. And before you respond, I just want to read another from Orthodox Phronesis for 5. He said, Big Mike seeing Uncle Alert be like, yeah, that's true. It just takes up my whole screen. Okay, go ahead, guys. Why didn't you answer Mentally Chill's question?
Yeah, so if everything that exists is in the form of a wave, then that would include the piece of plastic, okay? So if everything that exists, the entirety of what you call reality, is in the form of a wave, then necessarily the observer would need to be from outside. But yeah, the Bible says that God spoke it into existence. Okay, how he did it, the Bible doesn't
would make
say.
Quantum experiments impossible, according to you.
Well, no, because quantum experiments take place when they are in what you would consider an observer.
Are you saying a polarized lens is the act of God revealing the measurement to us?
So I also gave two other reasons, and so one of those would be
that's a dodge.
Was asking what it is that is metaphysically first that provides for all cases of contingency. Well, I think the one that actually dodged was you, because when you invoke a piece of plastic, excuse me.
What's a qubit?
Excuse me. When you invoke, we're not doing the quizzes. We can do quizzes. You want to do quizzes? So when you invoke,
one of the values is 1/2. What's the other one?
So the one who dodged was you. Okay, try to contain yourself.
He's really hurt still, Sam, that he failed the creation.
He's behaving like a child.
Like literally. What's
the other half?
That's a clip worthy. So if there's, he still hasn't gotten over it.
Let me know when you're done.
What's the second one? What's the
Bobby,
second
do you need some help?
1/2 0.
We're almost done.
What goes over here?
You're
1
crashing
to
out,
0.
Bob.
What
You
goes
think
next to
okay?
the 1?
So Mentally Chill
goes next
added
to
a
the 1?
follow up to that. He said Adam from dust, dust from
One-
he
one.
created from.
Yeah, so even the secular camp believes that all life is related to stardust. So you have a dust problem too. The problem here though is that you're going to have to say that you're dust by some random unguided processes instead of the most intelligent chemist in the laboratory, we'll say. So you don't get to tiptoe around this dust issue that you're bringing up.
All right, Vex sent another 10, and he said Sam needs to be in a little seasoned debate, but evolutionist. I want a real argument. Sounds like all theory and Christ believers have actually written history taught down generation after generation. I didn't really
We're the ones
understand
making.
that
I
if
mean,
that was a
literally
question
use
or not.
evolution in the lab. I literally
know.
use it in the lab. Like, what? Explain
Yeah,
to me
no,
what's
you don't.
happening in the directed evolution
Yeah.
experiments that were not.
We're-
Like, what is actually happening in those experiments?
When
You're
you're
just
doing those
equivocating
experiments,
on
you're not
terms here.
thinking, oh, thank God I'm related to chimps and grass and ladybugs
Right.
to carry out those experiments. That's operational science, good science, good empirical science, but it has nothing to do with your evolutionary philosophical belief that you're related to pond scum, Dr.
Yeah,
Gregg.
but we see we in those experiments we don't see any barriers in evolution as a technology. Like we see it work and we see things happen and we see like we were talking about before, it's not all a path forward. Sometimes it's just the fittest for what is needed at that time, not the fittest possible thing. So you do have to route around some mutations that were deleterious, but that actually somehow gain a function because of stochastic different types of mutations that can help impact the binding sites of a protein. There's tons of what we understand in the model, and we see it and we use that same model outside and it all matches up.
That's actually false because there isn't
math-
actually an
Bobby,
experiment.
let
that you
Sam
can point
respond.
to.
He was sitting patiently at Sam's turn.
Yeah, there isn't
ahead.
actually something that you can point to, whether it be
Sorry, go through
Linsky's
this.
bacteria, experiments with fruit flies or fleas or bloodworms. I mean, how much money has been spent on dog breeding or horse breeding or cow breeding? And they're all going to tell you the same thing. You're never going to create something that isn't what it was prior. Okay, you're not going to violate that law of monophyleum, which isn't a mechanistic law, is that?
Donnie
Donnie
admitted in the debate that the viral kinds evolved after Noah's Ark.
But
He
you're
admitted
making
that.
I'm not sure I would
But
call
your
that
assumption,
evolved.
your assumption there, though.
So you're rocking it back now. So
Well,
again,
Dr. Gregg, do you
talking
agree?
about. You're
Dr. Gregg,
you're assuming that there was like one virus and everything derived from it.
That's what I asked.
Well,
that was my ask.
No,
There's
he
different
said
kinds of viruses.
Yes,
plural.
different kinds of
I'm
viruses.
talking
Like a
exogenous
colony. What are you talking
RNA
about?
viruses.
There's a lot more. There's a lot different viruses than
I
ERVs,
understand.
my dude.
And
What are
most
you talking
viruses
about?
are
And all of them could have
good,
been on the
healthy,
ark.
beneficial.
I
They're
know, and
created
those
that way for you.
bacteriophages and all those things. Where did they come? Where were they?
Well, a lot of those are due to degenerated bacteria.
Oh my gosh!
All right, we're moving on here. We're moving on here. While it's fresh,
in germ theory.
well, while it's fresh, I do want to read this
position,
one
why-
from Orthodox Phronesis for 5. It said, Canadians are so nice. My insult caused the opponents to reminisce about hockey. I rescind my insult. Okay. And then this one is going to be in response to your other thing, Donnie. Created heterozygosity, no evidence, that was in quotes, no evidence that Adam/Eve created with built-in difference. That math has also been done, still hundreds of thousands of years wrecked, says Austin.
Yeah, no, and I'm happy to do an entire debate with Austin on created heterozygosity or anybody. I pointed out several times the model, the gold standard of science is making testable and falsifiable predictions. So our model, created heterozygosity, suggests that Adam and Eve were created in a state of DNA diversity. Same thing applies to the original created kinds. Two simple predictions without going too long. DNA function, we would predict that the vast majority of DNA and DNA genetic markers are functional. That includes ERVs, we've demonstrated that, pseudogenes, non-coding regions of the genome. We also predict that speciation takes place largely due to shifts in heterozygosity to homozygosity. You get breakaway populations, isolation, you get these changes taking place. And Dr. Nathaniel Jeanson made this prediction. And then just several years ago, there was a new species of Darwin's finch produced. genetically, it was produced by those same mechanisms, shifts in heterozygosity to homozygosity. So over time, as allelic variability is lost from the starting point, species hit walls. So this model is making successful, testable predictions, and that's the gold standard of science.
Not in paternity tests, not in viruses, not in any type of medicine, any type of technology. You can patent it. You're like, what? It doesn't cost you any money. I don't know why Sam thought that the government paid for patents to be done, by the way. That was a little weird. You can just create your own patent, go to the USPTO, get a patent lawyer, and have them, submit a patent.
Dr. John Sanford, he invented the gene gun.
Governments don't fund universities.
All right.
Dude,
Governments
use the
don't
gene
fund colleges.
Of
You
course
don't
they
have
do.
grants for your.
What do you think of Dr. John
else
Sanford,
doesn't-
Dr. Gray? Do you respect Dr. Sanford? He
A
invented the gene
patent,
gun.
a patent
my
in
dude,
something else doesn't indicate that person''s belief in some other position is valid. They didn't patent
Just like the
something in
evolutionary
creation model.
authors.
They didn't.
Okay.
They didn't patent.
I want to
something
hear
in
Dr.
creation
Greg
model.
talk about the gene gun.
Well,
I've used it, my dude. I've literally used it like dozens
And
of
did you
times.
know that was invented by a young Earth creationist?
No, I did not. I
we'll
did
continue
not.
on, but I do want to just throw this in there for a second. Robin
That's not
Weber says, big fan of Dr. Greg. Sam only has dodge and project.
What did I dodge? The Bible says that God spoke everything into existence ex nihilo. It doesn't tell me how. But if you reject that, there's consequences.
And then
Unfalsifiable.
Sydney
The action
Raptor,
that it couldn't
Fantastic.
engage with.
Sydney
I
Raptor
asked him
says,
what
you
it
guys
is that's
present
metaphysically.
falsifiable
Hold on.
models.
I asked him what it is that's metaphysically first, that provides for all states of contingency. I asked him what it is that is ultimate and singular, that provides for all states of unity. I asked that in my opening.
Assume your
Nobody
hypothesis?
engaged with it. I asked him what provides for anything being possible or impossible. I mean, this is what we mean by God being ultimate. God
And
invoked and
I
secured
asked you
the
a
law.
basic question: what's a qubit? And you can't even tell me.
Yeah, listen. Let me be
I
really
even gave
clear
you half
again.
the answer.
Hold on,
One
settle
half.
down.
What goes
Settle
on the other
down.
value?
Let me be clear.
One half.
Assume-
What goes here?
Assume. Be really clear.
Well, what
You
goes
have a
next to
bad
the
habit.
one?
You
One
have a
half?
bad habit over talking me. Can you behave a little bit?
I know.
Doctor?
What goes on the second value? What goes on the
Educated
one?
man?
So
Have
you have
no
a half
manner?
next to the zero. Then you put a.
Sydney
No
Raptor
manners.
says for 2,
Yeah.
DNS, so no evidence directly supporting Adam and Eve.
Okay, my turn. Yep, the whole time. Mutation rates in mitochondrial DNA are fast. I showed the phylogenetic trees of Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA. The mitochondrial DNA family tree, literally taken from the 1,000 Genomes Project. We have real-time data represented on a phylogenetic tree, and you can tell that we're looking at one woman. Again, bring in the mutation rate data, Y chromosome dissimilarity. Y chromosomes in general are incredible.
Hold that thought,
Dr.
Donnie.
G?
This is super relevant. This might be the last one from Austin, I believe. He says SFT is ignoring long-term phylogenetic rates to focus only on short-term generation-to-generation pedigree rates. Fix the Arnaudotter misattribution.
Yeah, so a couple things there. Austin Sims is still very hurt. Clearly, he's losing sleep over it, I think.
And money.
Because-
And money.
And money,
That's
yeah.
what I say.
Mini debate
Sam,
with
same
Austin
thought.
Sims. So in our formal debate, Dr. Dodgeball Dancer and Cardinal, he failed his students. He told them to argue that we only use single generation pedigrees to come up with our Eve date. Well, firstly, that's false. Howell et al. I showed some excerpts from that. That's multi-generational. We also have Madrigal, that's multi-generational, and the Helgeson study. So he's really hurt because he didn't know what the Helgeson study is. Helgeson's a co-author. Primary author is Arnaudotter. Many people call that study, it's the largest. If you're debating this topic, you better be aware of the largest mitochondrial DNA study. This is done on Icelanders. To date, 2024, if I remember correctly, okay? Helgeson, Agnar Helgeson's really well known in the world of mitochondrial DNA and mutation rate studies, okay? And the D-loop rate in that paper, if I remember correctly, 1 out of 38 or 1 out of 40, matched really nicely with the D-loop rate in the Parsons paper. Again, here's the last thing I'll say, Mike, there's a lot there. The neutral mutation rate, basic population genetics, approximates the fixation rate. Today, fixation is basically 0, but we have 8 billion people on the planet, tons of mutations, billions of mutations entering the population. Okay. In the past, you had smaller populations. and therefore faster rates of fixation because genetic drift is stronger, natural selection is weaker. Okay. So yeah, him appealing to the phylogenetic rate doesn't help him at all.
All right, Vex just sent in $10. He said, who believes the sun is 93 million miles away, yet it is closer to the earth in winter?
By how much? I mean, what, a few percent? I mean, like, are we, what is it, 50 million miles in the winter? Okay.
I'm
that's
not
just,
sure,
like,
Vex.
laughably absurd.
That is a vague question, my man.
Well, what we
yeah,
do know is Dr. Bobby
things
has
have
dodged
elliptical
my
orbits,
questions
right?
numerous times.
The shape of the Earth is also not a perfect sphere, right? Like, these are obviously known things. I don't know why this would be relevant.
I think this is probably going to be the last two that I ask here, and then we're going to wrap it up for the evening. We just passed 3 hours here, which I do appreciate you guys sticking through, all you gentlemen. H-Town Strong. Oh, you're from Houston as well, sir. He just says, oh, God, my thing is spazzing out. All right, so he said there shouldn't ever be a debate. There shouldn't ever be a creation versus evolution debate. Evo is barely a philosophy, not a worldview, and has no objective standards.
Yeah, correct. That's why they didn't engage with anything that I opened up. It's not undergirded by any, sufficient philosophy.
Well, Sam, let's let them respond to that first, and then if you guys want a quick comment after, go for it. But that's going to count as yours.
Is there? So just curious. Were there dinosaurs on Noah's Ark?
Yeah, that's why we find soft tissue.
There were dinosaurs
and that's also why we have and that's also why we have historical. You're gonna love this, Dr. Greg. So keep that smile going. That's why we have historical accounts from ancient explorers like Marco Polo and Alexander the Great, Herodotus, where they document in writing descriptions of creatures that sound exactly like dinosaurs. Do you expect the word dinosaur to be found in ancient literature? The word dinosaur just came about in what, the 1800s? What do you think they were
like 1820.
They were calling them dragons. Okay. The Bible describes in Job.
We found, are they fossilized?
Actually, the collagen that they find.
The difference between a fossilized red blood cell and
but guess what?
Red blood
you have
cell,
no good answer for that preserved collagen.
You've got nothing
collagen
to preserve
can't
it.
last any more than 500,000 years. Yet we find preserved collagen in dinosaur fossils. We find C14 in diamonds, coal,
collagen fragments.
And we find C14 in dinosaur fossils.
Space.
Bobby, how do you explain
the molecules? Is there dinosaur blood in space? Is there hema in space?
It's actually been published.
How does that explain the preserved organic biomaterial in dinosaurs where that's decaying?
Dr. Greg, there's dinosaurs in space.
Bobby, I know you're excited. Okay? You've been demolished all night. How do you explain the abundance of helium that they find in zircon crystals? I'm almost done, dude. It's like I'm not even done my question. Okay,
he can't help himself.
He really can't help it. He just completely can't show the 3 hour mark.
Just tell me the size difference.
Would you agree that uranium? Would you agree? It's off topic. Can you explain what an allele
is? Donny.
Bobby, what's an allele?
What's an allele? I'm not a biologist.
That's the most basic question, though. Right. It's a genetic variant. Like that's
you don't know what LDA is.
So I'm going to give you an easy one. What does DNA stand for? DNA. What does it stand for?
Oh my gosh! Why would it matter?
I'm not a biologist.
That's the point I'm making, Doctor.
You want me to Google it for you?
Oh stop with his
you don't know what standard deviation is.
All right, guys. I think.
See, I can't even finish my question because Bobby's so excited.
No, I think we're gonna wrap it up there, gentlemen. We're gonna wrap it up there.
We literally have no idea what these things
Hand in your test.
DNA stands for.
Hand in your test. I'm gonna grade them. Quiz over.
Right?
I knew.
No more questions,
Bobby.
No more questions.
Say I don't know.
Mike's dodging. Mike's dodging this one.
He's running.
You're unwilling to say
it's not going to make a difference right now, Donnie. I apologize.
You don't know what these are.
All right, Bobby.
Everybody, don't help prove you're related to chimp.
Just tell me what a standard deviation is.
We're going to start.
Answer my helium. Are you going to answer my?
We are going to start from Dr. Greg since he is being so patient there to end this. Go ahead, tell us where you can find your channel, and then appreciate you being on tonight.
Yeah, guys, thank you. I host lives on TikTok and YouTube every night around 9 or 10 p.m. PST. Do kind of like a nightly show. news, politics, science, all that kind of fun stuff. So yeah, check me out, Dr. Greg Show everywhere, drgregshow.com. Thank you.
All right, Sam, go ahead and tell us if you got a channel or anything that we could find you on.
Yeah, not really. I am on TikTok under Redefine Living, and I got my little face getting eaten by a dragon, or yeah, a dragon, appropriately called. So if anyone wants to discuss anything that I've stated, especially my opening, why the atheistic worldview is vacuous, and that's why, unfortunately, Dr. Bobby had to interrupt every time and misbehave instead of engaging with questions. Do this whole Q&A. Maybe you want to take his place and engage with my arguments in his place.
Stop insulting?
So since he can't, and you're still doing it, buddy.
All right. So,
Pointing out the fact that you dodge an argument is not.
All right, Donnie, you're next. You're next. Or we're gonna let Bobby go next. You can get the quick 5-second last word there.
God is good. Christ is Lord. My argument objectively proves that.
Sam.
Sam, rebuttal.
We gotta stop. Everybody, we gotta stop interrupting the outro here. This is not okay. Go ahead, Bobby. Tell us where to find your channel. Let's try to keep it at that, actually.
Yeah, I'm Bobby. I'm new to social media. I'm a PhD mathematician. I like dealing with misinformation, disinformation, science, politics, religion. Come chat with me. I have a Discord that's running. I have YouTube channel, TikTok, Instagram. Give me a like, follow if you like the content or whatnot. Spread it around. I typically try to debunk people that try to misrepresent mathematics. I find it very disheartening and annoying. And so, yeah, I hope to keep continuing to do these kind of things.
All right, Donnie, go ahead. Tell us where to find your channel.
My name is Donny Budinsky. I've got a PhD in demolishing pseudoscience and misinformation and bad science and everything we did here tonight. You can find us over on YouTube, Stand for Truth. We host a lot of debates, open mics, seminars. I do this full time. My Facebook page, we just hit 141,000 followers there. We've got 70 to 80 million views this year so far. So we got a lot of content, a lot going on over on Facebook. You can check us out on standfortruthministries.com, where you can read our articles. You can check out our books, clothing lines, endless content for you to enjoy, including a lot of debates on a variety of topics. So, and lastly, I enjoyed this debate. I thought it was a lot of fun, engaging. Dr. Greg, Dr. Bobby, always a pleasure to be on Modern Day Debate. So I enjoyed. 3 hours flew by. Thanks, gentlemen.
All righty. Shout out to James for putting this together, throwing me into the fire. You guys are fun to listen to. Sorry it lasted so long, chat. If you're just hanging by a thread, we did our best to get through every rebuttal. Not sorry if I missed anybody's chat. I did have to skip maybe like one or two of Austin's, but I think we're
Austin had more than that.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be okay, and we'll probably have you back on soon. I think that's a Dr. Greg merch shout out right there. Okay. All
James
right.
is the man with the biceps. James Coons.
Yeah, we'll see if he grows either vertically or laterally by DebateCon 9.
He wants his lats to keep going.
He's working on becoming the Avenger moderator. So
Captain America.
We'll see him at DebateCon 9. You can see me at DebateCon 9. Get your tickets in the chat and in the description. It's going to be in Orlando, Florida. It's going to be connected to a water park, apparently. We'll see how it turns out. But from the word on the street, you buy the hotel room through the description that James set up there, and you'll be able to get the resort fee waived, and you can go water slide in between debates. And as long as you dry off, you can come right back into the conference room. So I'm sure there'll be some strict rules about track and water. So don't be that guy. But it should be cool. If you get really tired, bored after sitting there 6 hours, you want to go, I think it's going to be available to you. Sorry, do you want to say something real quick?
Yeah, Austin Sims was in the live chat saying Donnie doesn't have a PhD, so I don't want anyone to take that out of context. I think it was very understandable. I was rhetorical.
Tongue in cheek.
PhD in demolishing evolution. So yeah, it's a self-earned, self-written PhD, Austin. So no
yes,
worries.
life in HD. The lazy river is gonna rip. All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. Like the video, subscribe if you're a new watcher, and then check out the memberships because you'll be able to watch DebateCon 9 live weeks before anyone else who's not a member. So thank you guys so much for coming, and we're gonna see you later.